start with Everton. They're dubbed the Toffees, but why? Well, because when the club was formed, just down the road there were two local toffees to be chanted by their opponents as a way of putting the team down for their farming background. But during one game back in the late 90s, Ipswich were 1-0 up and they decided to flip the script. 1-0 to the Tractor Boys, they sang, and a new nickname was born. Let's head to Leicester, famous for more than just a red, well, orangey cheese and Jamie Vardy. Leicestershire is also the birthplace of fox hunting, hence the Foxes. Next up, turns out apples are not the only fruit that don't fall far from the tree. Bournemouth's nickname, the Cherries, comes from the fact the club's stadium was originally built right next to a bunch of cherry orchards. This next story actually involves two club nicknames. It started with Crystal Palace. They were having an absolute nightmare run back in the early 70s. They'd been relegated after a terrible spell and manager Malcolm Allison decided enough was enough. He wanted a new nickname, something strong, fast and destined for success. Something exactly like an eagle. But there's more to this one. Brighton were in search of a nickname too, and Palace finally gave them what they needed. In a heated match between the two back in 1976, Palace fans began chanting, "Eagles, Eagles." And some clever Brighton fans came up with the perfect reply, "Seagulls, Seagulls." Not all club nicknames have a crazy story though. Take the Gunners. That just comes from the fact a group of munitions workers in the Royal Arsenal factory in Woolwich set up the club in 1886. On the flip side, some nicknames seem simple, but there's a bit more to them. Like West Ham. The Hammers is actually nothing to do with the ham part of the name. It comes from the fact the club used to be called Thames Ironworks FC and was made up of workmen and shipbuilders. So next time the away end's chanting their crazy nickname, you'll now know exactly where it came from.
Hello and welcome to Kickoff on talkSPORT. I'm Hugh, Woozencroft. Alongside me tonight, the one and only Rory. Jennings will be reviewing the summer transfer window. Of course, we will. What grade would you give your team and why? That's what I want to know. Chelsea, Man United, Spurs, Arsenal, Forest and the rest. Has it changed your expectations for the season ahead, good or bad? 03717 223344. You can also send us a WhatsApp voice note to the same number. Also, what did we learn this summer in the transfer window about spending, about PSR, and whether the best thing for a player to do is throw their toys out the pram if they want to secure a move? We'll discuss Isak, Wissa, and a man who stayed loyal and paid the price in Marc Guehi. We'll also talk England with Henry Winter. I'm starting to think the Three Lions boss Thomas Tuchel isn't really that fussed, and I mean it too. This is Kickoff on talkSPORT. And breathe.
Yes, sir.
Transfer window.
I know it's closed. It's closed. There's a bit of a relief to it being closed.
Closed here, yeah.
Yeah. What we now know about the Premier League teams, you can look at the team, you can genuinely assess where they are, how they rank, how you see this going. And it was an enthralling window, I thought.
I refused to make my predictions for this season until I knew what the squads were going to be.
I think that's a wise thing to do.
I think when the deals were going to be so big, it felt like a year where it's like, well, there's going to be some significant transfers.
Totally, and it was also so unpredictable. There were so many signings that were made that were completely unpredictable. We had situations where it looked like Eberechi Eze was going to go to Tottenham, suddenly he's an Arsenal player. And obviously you had the long, drawn-out, protracted saga of Alexander Isak. But I did thoroughly enjoy it. I did enjoy the transfer, and I thought it was brilliant.
Are you a fan that celebrates signings?
I think I have in my life. I haven't celebrated any signings lately, but in my life, I've celebrated signings. Definitely. Ruud Gullit signing for Chelsea was worthy of celebration, no doubt. Fernando Torres signing for Chelsea, just sort of for what it symbolically meant. And then obviously we played him in our first game. Torres' first game for Chelsea was against Liverpool. That became like one of the like most highly anticipated, highly charged games at Stamford Bridge that I've ever been to. So yeah, I have in my life celebrated transfers. I didn't erupt into a spontaneous celebration when Chelsea announced Jamie Gittins, but I'm not saying I won't in the future.
It was just the most incredible transfer window this summer. I said it previously, but if you're into EastEnders, Coronation Street, all that stuff, football's the best soap opera in the country, bar none at the moment. I mean, it's just saga.
It's full of jeopardy and unpredictability. It's everything that you want. It's cliffhanger after cliffhanger.
Yeah, we haven't had any murders yet, but generally when it comes to cliffhangers, it's just football. But you never know.
No,
it might be around the corner.
It was a great window, and you've honestly got to look at what Liverpool have done in this window. Like, I think that it is going to go down as a historic window.
If they'd have got Marc Guehi, I might have called it the best window the club has ever had in the Premier League.
I think you still can, because if you think about what Liverpool are trying to do, if you think about the point of the signings that they made this year, I don't think it's about winning the league this year. Of course, winning the league this year would be huge for them. They've never retained a Premier League title. In fact, Liverpool haven't retained a title since the mid to early 80s. Like, that was the last time that they retained a league. And, you know, great managers, Arsene Wenger never retained a league. So that is the first hurdle for them to overcome, no doubt. And that is why they approached the transfer window with such aggression. But I also think they're trying to do something bigger than that, something broader. I think they're trying to create, you know, a team of, dynasty. I think they're trying to create a genuine era. Like, you know, the era where they totally dominated football.
Yeah.
And you had a spine. I think it was sort of Clements, Hansen, Souness and Dalglish. This team that they're building, I'm not saying that they're as good as those players or going to go down in history like the players that I just mentioned. I just mean that it feels like a team of icons. Virgil van Dijk is undoubtedly an icon. Alisson is undoubtedly an icon. Mohamed Salah is undoubtedly an icon. And then you sign the young, prodigious players that could easily become icons. Florian Wirtz, Alexander Isak, Hugo Ekitike. Feels like they have a bit of everything, and I think they're going to take someone is going to have to put in an unbelievable charge to stop them.
Yeah, the age profile is absolutely right when it comes to what Liverpool have done this summer. And even, you know, you can't forget they held on to Virgil van Dijk. They held on to Mohamed Salah, who are obviously at the other end of the age spectrum, but will impart their experience, their knowledge of the game onto those younger players to bring through the next generation. Yeah, through gritted teeth, I have to say, what Liverpool have done this summer is sensational. But there's been so much money spent. We're going to get into it a little bit later on, but over £3 billion spent by Premier League clubs, more than the other top 5 leagues put together, if you like, which is absolutely crazy.
It's horrible. The amount of money sloshing around the Premier League, sloshing around football, but specifically the Premier League, I think it's hateful. Like, I really don't enjoy it. But it is what it is. Yeah. It is what it is. And then you look at what some of the other teams have done in the transfer. Like, we'll always talk about Arsenal, Liverpool, but I think Sunderland had a great window. I think Tottenham Hotspur had a great window. So it's going to be, it could all combine to create a wonderful football season.
I want you all to give us your review, your grade for your team's transfer window this summer. You can give us a call, 03717 223344. You can text us as well on 81089 and obviously tell us why you're giving them that grade. Let's do letters. I don't know what the new number system is with the kids these days. Let's do letters, old school, all right? Just a reminder, though, there will still be moves happening. The Dutch transfer window doesn't close until midnight tonight. You never know. We might see some go to the Eredivisie. But also the Turkish Super League, Mexican clubs as well, have until Friday, September the 12th. Portugal, September the 15th as well. And obviously the Saudi Pro League, September the 23rd. So obviously Saudi might be able to pick up some of the unwanted players from the Premier League and more. Not obviously going to be incomings in the Premier League, but if your club's held on to a player that you think they really should have sold, you never know. That deal still might get done. One deal, obviously, not getting done was Marc Guehi from Crystal Palace to Liverpool. And that is where we start this evening. He should be disappointed after his deal fell through. The deal sheet had been put in a few hours before the end of the window, but Crystal Palace couldn't find a replacement, so he was made to stay. A lot of the talk today has been about whether he should have kicked up a fuss with Alexander Isak going on strike, Johan Wissa as well. They both got their moves. Here's what the former Crystal Palace manager Roy Hodgson thought about it. He joined breakfast earlier this morning and expressed sympathy for Marc Guehi for not getting his move.
I found him an outstanding individual, not just an outstanding footballer, but an outstanding individual. And I suppose that's been shown quite clearly by his behaviour during this long drawn out saga. he's the person I feel really sorry for in this, of course, because, I mean, maybe if right at the beginning it had been made clear that his task ahead would be to stay at Crystal Palace, and there's no question of him leaving in the transfer window, then I'm sure maybe he could have got his head around that as well. But, you know, having been led to believe, really, and we've all been led to believe, that sooner or later a deal would be done between the two clubs and he would be allowed to move, I guess that his head for the last period of time, at least, has been in the fact that he's going to move, but he'll remain very professional and keep on playing for the club, despite the uncertainty of when that move would come about. So he's the loser in the situation. Palace should be the winner because he's such a good player, and to have a player of that calibre and a captain and leader of that calibre still with you should be seen as advantageous.
There you go. That's the former England and Palace boss, Roy Hodgson, talking about, of course, former Liverpool boss as well, talking about Marc Guehi missing out on his move. We're going to talk about where the players should throw their toys out the pram a little bit later on, but just on the fact that Liverpool haven't managed to get the Guehi deal over the line, I don't want to say is there any concerns, but how much of a boost would it have been for them to keep him, and how much of a boost is it for Palace that he stayed?
Oh, it's. I mean, I don't think you can qualify it. I'm not articulate enough to actually do justice to what it means to Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace's aspirations this season are directly linked to keeping Marc Guehi. Marc Guehi is undoubtedly an elite level defender. He is undoubtedly England's best centre half. He is undoubtedly one of the first names on the team sheet for Thomas Tuchel's men going to Germany next year. So I think that for Palace to keep him as they embark on a European tour is huge. It's exactly what they should do. In terms of what it means to Liverpool, though, I don't necessarily think it's quite as destructive as some people are suggesting. I think that they do have cover. I think that, look, if they sign Guehi, you'd almost go, it is the perfect window. It is the dream window. But I still believe that this Liverpool defence, as is capable of winning the league, capable of retaining.
The Liverpool fans will just say, well, if Virgil van Dijk gets a long-term injury, is that all of our hopes and dreams in the bin? Because he's so integral to them.
Yeah, that's possibly the case. But just to discuss that, I rate Joe Gomez highly. I rate Konate highly. I've also heard Arne Slot talking, and I know that this isn't an ideal, and any Liverpool fan listening to this now will be like desperate for this not to ever be tested. But Arne Slot's spoken about Ryan Gravenberch at centre-half, saying that he can definitely do a job there. He's spoken about Endo at centre-half.
Leone, the young 18-year-old Italian as well.
Exactly. They signed Leone, who's just been called up to the Italian national side. So I don't think it's as desperate as some Liverpool fans are positioning it. Signing Guehi is obviously brilliant if you can get him. But I don't think it is the catastrophe that it's being portrayed as, that they didn't. They still have a defence that is totally capable of winning the league. They still have a defence that has already won the league. And if they have a situation where Konate and Van Dijk are fit, and also, let's remember, cast your minds back, what would it be, 4 years ago? Do you remember that bromance that Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez had? Do you remember that partnership that they had that was kind of born out of nothing, and they ended up playing really well together? I just don't think that there is a major problem. And what you suggested, if Van Dijk gets injured, maybe they could be in trouble. It's absolutely true. But you'd extend the same courtesy to if Declan Rice gets injured. Can Arsenal win the league? Probably not. If I mean, I don't really think there's anybody else. I don't think there's anybody. Yeah, I don't think there's any other contenders. But if you believe that Manchester City are capable of winning the league, they're not capable of winning the league if Erling Haaland gets injured. Everybody has these players that are irreplaceable in their squad, and Liverpool are no different.
Okay, all right. If you've got a view on Marc Guehi, we're going to talk about his decision to stay loyal, to respect his contract, to continue playing, and what that meant for his exit a little bit later on this hour. Should he have done a Visser and Isak and thrown his toys out the pram? We'll get Rory's view on it very shortly, and mine as well. 03717 at 223344 if you would like to join the conversation. And remember, you can call us and let us know your review, your rank, your grade for your team's transfer window this summer. You can also text us a voice note, 03717 223344. We'll be back straight after this on Kickoff. This is Kickoff on talkSPORT. Hugh, Woozencroft and Rory Jennings with you this evening. On the way, we'll ask, should players force their way out of clubs more often? And we'll also talk about which clubs had the best transfer windows, who were the biggest losers as well. If you got a view, 03717 223344. Let's firstly, though, get an odds update with Ladbrokes.
Odds update on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. 18plusgambleaware.org.
And let's say good evening to Cal Gildart from Ladbrokes. Let's start with England. We'll be talking about them after 9 o'clock this evening. Ruben Loftus-Cheek called into the squad, Jarell Quansah as well. They're lining up to play Andorra at the weekend. I think we know who's going to win it, but who knows with England at the moment?
Too sure.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, well, I thought we were going to be talking about the England squad, but I daren't even look at the odds there because I won't be giving anyone any fun with that. But yeah, England, they're 25-1 to even just win their qualifying group. So it feels safe to say that they're going to be one of the 100 or however many teams are in North America next summer. But yeah, just on your chat about Guehi there, saying I think the line was that there's no better England defender. His 1 to 5 odds suggest that there's no defender likelier to be in the squad next summer, you know. And but Thomas Tuchel's squads, they've been interesting for the inclusions, haven't they? Someone who's not yet got the nod, but will surely be on the plane if he keeps it up, is Jack Grealish. Before he went to Everton, he was 5-1 to be in the World Cup squad of 26. That made him about 60th on the list. He's now 11-10, and he's just about in the top 26. Someone who is in the squad, but on the outside of the betting pitch, is Marcus Rashford at 5-4, which is also the case for Tino Livramento and Noni Madueke. They're both 11-8. But I've poured over the long list to try to find a couple of interesting prices, particularly in light of Ruben Loftus-Cheek's recall. Like Mason Mount has started well this season, and I know it's a big if, he can stay fit, 9-2 for his inclusion looks great odds given Tuchel clearly likes players he knows, and he absolutely loved him at Chelsea. But perhaps most interestingly odds-wise there, Jordan Henderson just keeps getting picked, doesn't he? But he's a 4-1 outsider for the World Cup squad with Ladbrokes.
4-1. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculously close. You've been nowhere near it.
Yeah, it's why it stood out to me, mate.
Yeah, I know, absolutely ridiculous. What about the World Cup outrights, Cal? How are we looking for England?
Yeah, well, European champions are the favourites to become the world champions. Spain are 5-1, which is just ahead of Brazil at 6-1. Carlo Ancelotti's side qualified, which is probably why they leapfrogged England and France in the betting. England and France joined third at about, I think it's 13-2, which makes them both shorter than defending champions Argentina at 8-1. That really surprises me as well, because I know Lionel Messi's very much on the downslope, but we all know he's still capable of magic, and they've made incredibly light work of qualifying. I think they topped the CONMEBOL by about 10 points, and they drew the most recent game. They're followed by Portugal at 9-1, but we know that Portugal so often flatter to deceive that it's hard to get excited about them. Germany at 10s are the only other team priced below 20-1. But I think finally, I'm going to have a word for Italy. Like, they won't have been to a World Cup for 12 years come kick-off next summer. They're not even favourites to win the qualifying group. They're 7-4 to do that, which is incredible, really. Norway are odds on there. But I can imagine more than a few people, just because of the name Italy, would fancy an each-way squeak on them to win the World Cup because they're priced at 25-1.
Yeah, might be worth it. We got some action tonight in the EFL Trophy, some scores to tell you about in a moment. But generally speaking, when you look at the competition as a whole, who are you suggesting is going to come through?
Another one there. I've got to get my odds up for you. I'm not even sure this early in the competition that
you're going for a winner. I'm only following my script. That's all I'm saying. So I've put you under it, Cal. I can only apologise.
I don't know where that one's been added to, mate. But if EFL Trophy teams, I've got friends who are down at the county ground tonight for Swindon.
There you go.
So I would be remiss if I didn't give them a shout. I think Ian Holloway seems to have got them playing quite well. They're all excited about their promotion chances this season. So I will give Swindon a shout out, and I'm sure at some point our traders will be able to provide us with odds.
Brilliant. Cal, thank you very much indeed. That look at the latest odds with Ladbrokes is 18+, gambleaware.org.
Odds update on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. 18+ gambleaware.org.
Should let you know, 24 minutes on the clock. Stevenage 2 goals up away at AFC Wimbledon. Cruelly, Chesterfield 3-1. Doncaster 1-0 up on Everton's under-21s. Fleetwood a goal down at home to Accrington. Lincoln a goal up against Notts County. Plymouth lead Cheltenham by a goal to 0 as well. It's 1-1 between Port Vale and Leeds under-21s. 1-1 between Shrewsbury and Walsall. Stockport 1, Wolves under-21s 2. And Swindon 2, Reading 0. The goals just hit the back of the net. All the other games this evening currently goalless. But let's move very swiftly on to talk about getting out of a club, Rory. And what we saw was Alexander Isak go on proper strike. He just said, I'm not coming back. I don't want to be reintegrated at Newcastle United. Yesterday, he got a British transfer record move to Liverpool. We saw Johan Visser, very public on social media, saying he doesn't want to play for Brentford anymore. He suggests the club should honour their promises and let him go, whatever he believes those promises should be. But in the end, he got his move from Brentford to Newcastle United. The one who acted respectfully, we've spoken about it, Marc Guehi at Crystal Palace, who continued to play, continued to wear the armband, scored a cracking goal at the weekend, and is reportedly very unhappy that he wasn't allowed to go to Liverpool on transfer deadline day. So should he have behaved like the other two?
Yes. Quite frankly, yes. What Marc Guehi, look, I'm full of admiration for Marc Guehi, and I'd say the first thing to do before you start talking about going on strike or training with your old club or refusing to play or feigning injury, before any of that, what you need to do is have a contract with the adequate break clause in it. You need to have a contract with a release clause that suits you, that suits everybody, because this situation can be avoided. If Alexander Isak or Harry Kane hadn't signed such a long deal with no break clause, then we wouldn't be in this situation. However, if you do find yourself tied to a club and you end up in a very privileged situation where a club as glamorous as Liverpool, Liverpool is currently the most exciting sporting project in world football. Like, it is a truly unbelievable club to go to at the moment. It must have the eyes of the world on it. And you have the opportunity of going to play for them. You have the opportunity of going to play at Anfield. You have the opportunity of hearing your name sung by the Kop, calling Virgil van Dijk, Mohamed Salah teammates. You have to do everything within your power to get that opportunity over the line, because you may never get it again. What kind of ambition would it show from Alexander Isak if he didn't agitate for a move? What kind of ambition? In fact, he would never be the player that he is, because the player that he is, who's risen to the very top, who is, in my opinion, the best striker in the league, you only get to be that when you have this determination and desire to be as ambitious as possible.
So you're saying he couldn't have been respectful and still got his move?
He couldn't have been respectful and still got his move. Harry Kane was respectful. And look at what's happened to Harry Kane. History's written by the winners. We're not kind about Harry Kane. Harry Kane is one of the most talented footballers that this country has ever produced. And people sneer at him because he doesn't have any silverware in this country. People laugh at him because he got stuck at Tottenham. What he needed to do was agitate for a move, force his way out of the club. And had he done that, do you know what would have happened by now? There'd be a corner of North London, anything from Liverpool Street up to Cheshunt, that despise him, and he'd be booed, and they'd call him all sorts of names. They sing songs about him. But the rest of the world would see him as a great. He would have won a treble with Pep Guardiola. He would have a Ballon d'Or to his name. He would have already broken the Alan Shearer 260 Premier League goal record, and he would already be an icon. Instead of that, people sneer, people laugh, and people talk about him in a very derogatory way. He's one of the best strikers I've literally ever seen play football in my entire life. And he scored 1 billion goals for Tottenham. Not one of them counted for anything. Waste of time.
I agree that Isak, with 3 years left on his deal, had to agitate. I don't know if he had to go to the extent he did. I think at the start, maybe it wasn't as bad, a long way out from the end of the transfer window, wasn't even the start of the season as yet. But I think once your team's playing in important matches, you've got a contract to play football for that club.
You are being completely rational. You are correct in this conversation.
You should be involved, no?
You're being rational. You're being correct. But what I'm saying is, it's a player's responsibility. When Alexander Isak has taken a trophy to Newcastle United, he's got them playing in the Champions League. He's done everything that he can for that club. It's a club that haven't won a title for 100 years. They haven't won a title for 100 years. He's the best striker in the league. He's then wooed by this Liverpool project, the Arne Slot magic, retaining a title, playing in the Champions League, probably winning a Champions League. What sort of man wouldn't want to go and play for that?
No, yeah, I understand his desires.
What's he meant to do? Like, prioritise playing with Aaron Ramsdale over Mohamed Salah? It's bonkers. It's bonkers.
I totally get it, and I'm contradicting myself because I'd prefer if he didn't act in that way. However, he was right to in the end because he got his move. If
you had a friendship with Marc Guehi, hypothetical here, if you had a friendship with Marc Guehi and you were counselling him into how to conduct himself, what would you be saying? Would you be saying you need to be more on the front foot?
No, a couple of weeks ago, I think, with the amounts being spoken about, and it was quibbling over 5 million or so here, it was one of those where I think he would have forced the move through had he said to Palace, listen, I'm just not in the headspace for the next couple of games to be involved. And I think they would have said at that stage, right, if Mark's not going to be playing, we need to get a replacement in now. And I think they would have got a replacement in for him, or a couple of players in for him, a week or two ago, and he would have already been at Liverpool before deadline day, to be honest, had he taken himself out of the team, because they would have needed players. Yeah. The point is, he left himself in the team. There wasn't a need for them to go out urgently. They could have left it late in the window. They did leave it late in the window, and it was too late for him. So there you go.
When you think about footballers' legacy, history's written by the winners. You need to do everything you can in your very short career to play at the very top. It would be ludicrous to stay at Newcastle when you could play for Liverpool.
If you've got a view on it, 03717 22 33 give us a grade as well for your team's transfer window. You can text us on 81089. You're listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT.
have a player of that calibre and a captain and leader of that calibre still with you should be seen as advantageous. But it remains to be seen, of course, how upset he may have been by what's happened during.
But former Palace chairman Simon Jordan says Liverpool could well be back in January and Guehi's stock is only going to rise.
35 million quid. You can't buy a top centre half for 35 million quid. And so the fact he's going to be free next year, I mean, he's going to be able to feed this generation, the generation after that, and the generation after that, and the opportunity is going to arrive in his salary as a result of there being no transfer fee.
Elsewhere, Gianluigi Donnarumma's now joined Man City for £26 million on a 5-year contract. Edison's thanked Pep for 8 beautiful years. He's off to Fenerbahce. Plus, Manuel Akanji's joining Inter on a season-long loan. And Fulham have signed Jonah Kusi-Asari on loan from Bayern Munich. All the latest transfer news is at talksport.com. And former St Mirren captain and manager Jimmy Bone has died aged 75. He was St Mirren assistant when they won the Scottish Cup in 1987. Bone also played up front for Partick Thistle, Norwich City, Sheffield United and Celtic.
So much to discuss this evening as we review the transfer window that was. It was incredible, to be perfectly honest. I shouldn't be saying that about a transfer window, but so many stories, so many big transfers as well. We want your view on it. Give your team a grade for how they did in this summer transfer window. 03717 22 3344. You can send us a voice note on WhatsApp as well. We'll get to your calls very, very shortly. First, though, let's take a look at the latest football action with Ladbrokes.
The big preview on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. 18plusgambleaware.org.
Hugh Woozencroft and Rory Jennings are with you, and we're delighted to say we're joined by Will Pugh, host of Sun Sports Transfer Exposed. Good evening.
Gents, how you getting on?
Very well indeed. I can see you're a happy hammer with all your pictures on the wall. We'll come to your beloved team very, very shortly. But first, your views on it. You've been covering it in very detailed manner throughout the entire transfer window. Who do you feel had the most impressive window?
Yeah, I thought I'd put it all behind me, Hugh, quite frankly, after the late night yesterday before the producer called earlier on. But to be honest, it depends which way you look at it, right? It's easy to go, Liverpool have done well, Arsenal and Tottenham have done well because they've brought some good players in. I think Everton, particularly, sort of quietly, Tyler Dibbling, Dewsbury Hall and Jack Grealish. I think most clubs in that sort of who would consider themselves in Everton's bracket would have been delighted with those rivals. I think Aston Villa, who, you know, most of their fans and their manager, I think, are quite disappointed with their transfer activity, would have been grateful for those. And I suppose Bournemouth as well is sort of easy to say, as everyone did, they're going to be in trouble if they keep losing all of them players. £200 million in income, in transfer revenue, and they still look like one of the better teams, giving Liverpool a good game already. That excellent win at Tottenham at the weekend held on to Semenyo, and I think for lots of teams it's as much about that, players they held on to, and Bournemouth is certainly one of those, as it is about players they bought in. So, but yeah, I think Everton in particular, if we're just talking incomings outside of the big four, the big five teams, or the player hoovers as they tend to be these days, I think Everton probably get the tip of the hat from me, and Sunderland get a shout out.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Can I ask you, what do you think about the Donnarumma move to Man City?
Intriguing, really. I think it's tinged with sadness. Ederson, obviously, the most decorated Premier League goalkeeper. I think hugely not underrated, because people think he's unbelievable. He's quite a humble, sort of quiet, softly spoken kind of character. I think if he was a bit more loud and brash, he'd be sort of heralded way more than he is. But he's just gone about his business so well.
He plays for Manchester City as well, doesn't he?
Well,
had he played for United or Liverpool or Arsenal, I think you'd hear a lot more about Ederson, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I quite agree with all of that. So I think his departure, obviously, he was keen. He's been keen for a while. I think his family were keen on a move when the Saudi interest came around a year ago. I think 11-12 million quid it is Fenerbahce have paid for him now. I find it a little bit puzzling, if I'm honest. It feels a little bit too, I don't know, a potential drama magnet, Rory, if you know what I mean, for Pep. He's not, their transfer business normally is sort of like quietly understated, isn't it? But this one feels a little bit different. Lots of interesting theories I've heard about Pep. It maybe being his last season and he just wants to go out with a bang, and he just wanted some transfers up front who were going to do the business now, a bit like Fergie did towards the end of his reign at United. That maybe Donnarumma is one of those. 26 million quid. He wanted a pay rise on his £210,000 a week wages that he was getting at PSG. Not that Ederson wasn't doing okay, to be fair, but I find it a little bit peculiar, and lots of questions about what he's like with his feet, because he won't be as good at Ederson, world-class shot stopper as he is.
Yeah, I think he'll be a good addition for Manchester City, obviously, given what we saw in the Champions League last
upgrade,
year.
Hugh?
I don't think he's an upgrade. I think I'd rather have Ederson in goal, but I know a lot of people out there will say Donnarumma's a better goalkeeper. Ederson's form over the last kind of 18 or so months had kind of dropped off. I think Manchester City just said it was an opportunity too good to turn down. And I think you see a goalkeeper of that quality available at that price. But I do think Guardiola's job for the next couple of years before he leaves, whether he leaves this summer or next summer, is to develop players. I think the goal for Guardiola is to leave Manchester City in a very strong place. I don't know necessarily if it's all about, at the moment, winning Champions Leagues, winning Premier Leagues, as much as we've invested in some excellent young players who need your guidance to become top world-class players. And maybe when the next manager comes in, they've got a lot to work with.
Donnarumma only 26 as well, so an element of future-proofing,
Right, do you want to talk West Ham?
Well, you said I was a happy hammer. I was going to correct you and say I'm a hammer.
What do you think of some of the business? There was quite a lot of work done on the last day.
Yeah, I think it doesn't help but play into the fact that West Ham's transfer policy tends to be a little bit more reactive, and the board are often criticised for perhaps lack of a coherent plan. I think it's worth noting they spent £160 million in backing woeful Julian Lopetegui last summer. So there was a bit of hesitancy in the board about doing the same again, and PSR constraints obviously mean they couldn't go out and spend quite as much money. The fact it was all left to the last minute until we'd been absolutely embarrassed in the first two games of the season, away at Sunderland and then against Rory's Chelsea, of course, is also a little bit frustrating. But it became screamingly obvious then that midfield reinforcements were needed. And the club went out and got Matheus Fernandes from Southampton and Songutu Magassa from Monaco. We haven't seen Magassa yet. Fernandes played very well in that 3-0 win against Forest. But I would say the whole window on the whole is sort of a bit of a 4 or a 5 out of 10, really. Some real iconic top professionals left the club this window, and I don't think there's a huge amount of optimism, even considering the win we had at the weekend, that West Ham are going to do anything even remotely memorable this season.
No, and do you know what, Will? Almost regardless of what's going on the pitch, even regardless of a very, very impressive 3-0 win, like it's just all going wrong, isn't it? Like the board feel like they're totally at odds with the way that the fans see the club. Nothing seems to be chiming with one another. I feel like Graham Potter is totally and utterly out of his depth and doesn't seem to have the stature of being a West Ham manager whatsoever. Like this is just all unsustainable, isn't it?
Apart from that.
Well, I know. I think of all of the things you said there, Rory, the thing that gets at the heart of it the most is about Graham Potter having the necessary stature to be a West Ham manager. And I don't mean that as in that I doubt Potter is a good manager, but I think you're absolutely spot on that to be West Ham manager, West Ham is one of those clubs, and we're obviously not in the same league as Manchester United, but there are a few clubs, Manchester United are one of them, there are a few clubs up and down the country where you need a bit more about you than just being a good coach. Anyone can go and be, respectfully, but anyone can go and be a good coach at Bournemouth or at Brighton or at Brentford. There are clubs up and down the country where you need a bit more than that. You need a bit of gumption about you need a bit of character, and that's to manage upwards, both in the club, to manage the enormous and passionate fan base at West Ham, often quite split and divided as well. But it creates certainly, passion is probably the most diplomatic word of to describe. And I think you just need a bit more than just being a good coach to manage a club like West Ham.
And he just doesn't have that, does he? What you're talking about?
I feel we're being harsh on Potter.
I think we're being generous because there was an
stats
there was an implication there
listen,
from Will that he was a good manager, and he's just not.
Listen, I know the stats aren't good. The reason that I feel we're being harsh on Potter is he does have to steer a big club in West Ham United with a passionate fan base. Currently, the ownership group at West Ham United, I think, are eyeing a sale. I look at the transfer window, and what I see is what we're doing to keep our heads above water. There's no real strategy. There's no long-term thinking. They've brought in Graham Potter. Although he's been supported kind of financially, obviously it's nothing incredible. You know, you look at the players that have been brought in, you're just like, well, they've just grabbed a hold of whoever they could get in terms of quality.
Out of his depth,
right?
And the way that he conducts the club, it feels like the club.
No, but we speak about other managers and them being given the tools to do their job. And I sit there and I look at Potter. Is this what he would have been asking for in terms of the tools that he needs to get the best out of him as a coach? No, he's just currently been given a group of players and said, go on then, what's the best that you can do? I don't see there isn't this big kind of wave of...
They're a poorly run club, but I don't necessarily think that we extend the courtesy to other managers who operate at poorly run clubs and are this generous to them. Manchester United are a poorly run club, but we're not being very kind to Ruben Amorim either.
But that is also the job, Hugh, of a manager, I think, is that, Graham Potter, again, by the way, would have walked into the club knowing the exact state they were in. He knew he was coming to take on Julian Lopetegui's players. He knew that there was £160 million spend and there was no chance any of those players were going to be worth that money this summer. Therefore, West Ham didn't have the capacity to go and spend big again. He would have known what to expect. And it is the job of a football manager to get the best out of a group of players. That's literally the job in a nutshell. And there are managers who've gone far, before Graham Potter, who have gone into clubs and had instant impacts and bigger impacts in quicker frames of time. He is getting a pass, to be fair, off lots of West Ham fans and football fans generally, for the situation he adopted last season and the lack of spending this season. But that only goes so far. Ultimately, you've got to do your best with the players you've got and win some games of football.
Yeah, let's see if he gets a pass in the next 4 games for West Ham United. 2 London derbies coming up against Spurs and Crystal Palace, both of them at home after the international break. They're away at Everton.
Spurs, Hugh, they're crumbling, don't worry about that.
They're away at Everton, and then they've got Arsenal at the Emirates. So those 4 games could pile pressure or could maybe see a change in the opinions around Graham Potter. Anyway, Will Pooh, thank you very much indeed. That is all thanks to Ladbrokes. It's 18+, gambleaware.org.
The Big Preview on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. 18+, gambleaware.org.
Right, up next, we're going to take your calls reviewing your season. 03717 223344. Reviewing your transfer window, excuse me. That's next on talkSPORT. Okay, good evening. It's Hugh, Woozencroft and Rory Jennings with you on Kickoff. It's the end of the transfer window. Obviously, it was a huge day on talkSPORT yesterday. Absolutely fantastic. The likes of Alex Crook, Ben Jacobs, Jen White, of course, as well. Keeping you up to date with all the news that was going on. I was listening throughout the day. Sure you were as well. Thanks for being with us. Very important period, but we can sit back and take a little bit of stock at the moment. So give us a call, 03717 223344, and give your team a grade for their transfer activity this summer. We're going to start with Peter, who supports Liverpool. Peter, I don't know why we're starting.
You just knew it'd be
a Liverpool fan. Peter, what grade do you give Liverpool?
An A.
Yeah, I thought you might say that. Not an A star, no?
No, I think I was frustrated that we didn't just go to Crystal Palace and go, listen, it's 40 million. This is the money. We want Marc Guehi. I don't know why we're quibbling over 5 million when we just went and broke 2 British transfer records.
Realistically, how damaging do you think it is that you didn't get Marc Guehi?
I don't think it's damaging. I think it's disappointment. I don't think it's damaging, though, because, I mean, we proved on Sunday, clean sheet. Obviously, I've been listening to the show, and I know, obviously, we've spoken about, if Virgil van Dijk got injured, what could that do for Liverpool? But it could be said about if Mo Salah gets injured. Obviously, we brought in great backup, but it could be said about a number of players. So I think Joe Gomez, as much as he's injury prone, he's a great centre-half to have. Kanate, coming for last day, I thought he was amazing on Sunday. And the young Italian lad we've just brought in, and he's been called into the national side. So I don't think there's so much room for pessimism as there is for optimism when it comes to Liverpool's transfer business and our centre halves.
Good on you, an optimistic Liverpool fan. Peter, thank you very much for getting us started this evening. I might have given him an A+, even without Guehi, but Peter wanted just a little bit extra. Let's speak to Warren, who's a Newcastle fan and very much on the other side of things. Good evening, Warren.
Yeah, hi there, guys. How are you doing?
Very well indeed. What's your view?
What it is, right? I don't know how you can see it. Well, Rory said it.
We just lost you there, Warren. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, saying that it was okay for Alexander Isak to throw his toys out the pram. In life, you don't always get what you want. The guy was quite happy to sign a contract when he was at Real Sociedad. Come to the Premier League. And then when he was with Newcastle, the main goal scorer, he didn't turn around and then and say, oh no, I'm going to stop at Real Sociedad and wait for Liverpool to come and get me, because that was never ever going to happen all the time he was there. And he should have showed a lot of respect to Newcastle for coming in and getting him. So from the throw his toys out the park is absolutely disgraceful.
You're right that you don't always get what you want, but it's your responsibility to try and get what you want.
Yeah, within the rules.
You know, hypothetically, when you signed him, when you signed him, you spent a lot of money on him. You signed him from Sociedad.
Yes.
If we'd said on that date that he's going to leave, but before he leaves, he will be the jewel in the crown of your team that wins silverware, breaks the hoodoo, the 70-year wait for silverware. He breaks that, and he leaves you in the Champions League
for a British transfer record. At that point, you would have been over the moon, wouldn't you?
If he's still under contract, he was still a Newcastle player. Why would you not want to see? Why would you not want to be honourable and do the right thing?
I think it was
because he can't go to wherever you want to go. Doesn't mean you say, right, I'm chucking everything out my pram. I'm not going to work. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that.
Maybe he knew that if he acted that way, he'd get his move to Liverpool. And that's just what he wanted. In the end, everything he's done has worked. The only thing that counts against him is obviously the football world, and fans of Newcastle United will judge him negatively. But in terms of his life, his football career, he's got exactly what he wanted, basically.
And both of you think that's right.
It's not about what's right and wrong.
Right, yeah.
It's not about what's right and wrong. Look, on a more human level, of course, I understand what you're saying. You're being rational. You're saying that you should be true to your word and true to your contract. And of course, in the perfect world, you are absolutely right. But you can understand as well that in a very short career that a footballer has, he's going to agitate for a move to go and play for one of the most iconic clubs in the world, rather than staying at Newcastle United, a club that have won one title in 100 years.
So why is this iconic club not buying when he was at Real Sociedad?
Because they wanted him to be a Premier League proven player. They didn't want him then, they want him now.
And
it's like, why didn't you buy Visser before he signed for Brentford?
Now's the time.
we have a choice.
Now's the time. Warren, appreciate your call this evening. Understand the frustrations for Newcastle United fans. I think they've had a very decent summer in the transfer window, though, despite losing Isak. I might give them a B.
Newcastle?
Jacob Ramsey, I like.
Are you off
Johan
your
Visser
rocker,
scored,
sir?
what? How many goals did he score last year? I know it was a lot of money, but...
Hugh, they've had a nightmare.
Altamada?
There's absolutely no way.
I said a B. What, a C?
No, it's been a disaster from start to finish for Newcastle United this whole window.
What grade?
How many players can you list off the top of your head that Newcastle United want to sign that turn them down?
No, but it's not about who turns.
No, but
you
it's
down.
a statement. It's
about who leaves and who comes in.
The whole window
No,
was a
it's not-
catastrophe.
no,
The
no.
whole window was a
It's about
catastrophe.
who leaves and who comes
The
in.
perception of the club off the back of not signing João Pedro early has been a
I'm
utter disaster.
grading the transfers. It's about who left and who comes in. I think they've got decent players at Newcastle United. I still think they can have a strong season without Isak. I think given who left, who's one of the best strikers in world football, they were never going to replace him like for like. I think they've managed to get some decent players in.
Can we just explore this?
Yeah.
They have recouped 125 to 130 million quid. They could have got 125 million to 130 million quid from Liverpool 8 weeks ago. They could have got it then. Instead, they held on. They said that he's only for sale on our terms. Their terms were 150 million quid. They held on to the very last day and sold him for the fee that they would have paid 8 weeks ago. They then, in order to replace Isak, in order to replace Wilson, they have spent the best part of 120 million quid on two players. It's been an utter disaster. Off the top of my head, Liam Delap, João Pedro, Brian Mbermo, Hugo Ekitike, Marc Guehi,
I get it.
James Trafford. It's been a disaster for Newcastle.
They bought the player of the under-21s, Voltamada from Germany, unproven but high potential. They've got Visser, who is proven. They've got Jacob Ramsey,
You're
who I
clearly
like
a glass half full
They've
kind of
got
guy,
Anthony
Mr.
Elanga.
Woozencroft. You're a glass half full kind of guy, because I'm not on this page at all.
Newcastle fans, let us know what you think. 03717 223344. Very quickly, we've only got a couple of minutes for Will, Aston Villa fan. What do you think of Villa's window? What would you grade them?
Oh, probably give them a C at best, and that's me being generous, if I'm honest, lads. Good evening. Thanks for coming on the show again. But yeah, I'd give them a C at best, and that's being generous.
Will, that's too generous. I saw that you'd signed Jadon Sancho. That immediately makes your window one of the worst possible.
I am not ready for a breakdown. I am not ready.
Yeah, I can't believe that I can't believe the moves that Villa have made. I really can't. It surprises me.
But you know what's the most annoying thing about that, though?
Go on.
We was in talks with PSG to sign Asensio. They wanted 20 mil. We offered 15 mil, and we was in talks, and then Jadon Sancho on loan comes up. Why are you going to go for Jadon Sancho, over somebody that was absolutely adored by the Villa fans?
Yeah, it makes no sense to me. Any team, though, in the last window that signed Victor Lindelof and Jadon Sancho lose the window, I'm afraid. It's like I rate Villa as a club highly. I really do. I think you're a prestigious club with a beautiful ground and a rich history. I think Unai Emery is a governor. I think he's a brilliant manager. But this window was
He's
shot.
one of our best ever managers, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he's one of the best managers in the league. I really do. I think he's an excellent
100%.
manager. But
100%. But yeah,
mate,
the Sancho move.
Lindelof in 2025.
Yeah, I know. But he was on a free, so
yeah.
So am I. You don't want me in your back line either.
Asensio, Villa missed out on him because I think they were going for a loan and he's moved permanently to Fenerbahce. I think PSG wanted to bank the money as soon as they could, so that's probably why. Yeah.
What I've seen on that was the fact that Fenerbahce wouldn't go for him because his wage demand. So then we got in contact with him, offered 15 mil, and they wanted 20. And I think that they were just trying to sweeten the deal. Yeah. But then the loan options came up, and then they took them. But
you've kept you've kept Emi Martinez. Happy with that?
But he's going Galatasaray.
You think he's gonna go as well? Oh my god! Okay, it gets worse for Aston Villa.
Yeah, but I have also read from one of the official Villa update teams that it wasn't Emi that basically started the move. The club had told him, look, because of PSR, we are going to have to sell you on if a reasonable bid comes in. If it doesn't, you stay in. If it does, you go in.
We're going to find out.
And that's why he was crying in Old Trafford. But the Harvey Elliott obligation loan,
Harvey Elliott's a great signing. Harvey Elliott is a great signing.
In a word, where do you think Villa will finish this season?
10th.
10th? Wow, okay.
That's the spirit.
Appreciate your call on talkSPORT this evening. I think both of us we're just about to faint. 10th. We'll see how Villa turn out under Unai Emery this season. Hasn't been the greatest starts so far without a goal in the Premier League. Much more still to come on Kickoff here on talkSPORT. We'll discuss Manchester United's window. Wonder what grade they're going to get straight after this. If you've got a few United fans, 03717 22 3344.
From the Toffees to the Tractor Boys, the Eagles to the Seagulls, Gunners, Bees, Hammers and Magpies, Premier League teams have got a load of crazy nicknames. Ever wondered where they came from? Let's start with Everton. They're dubbed the Toffees, but why? Well, because when the club was formed, just down the road there were two local toffee shops. Ye Ancient Everton Toffee House and Mother Noblet's Toffee Shop were big fan favourites. Next, they say if you can't beat 'em, join 'em, and that's exactly what Ipswich Town did when it came to their nickname. The term Tractor Boys used to be chanted by their opponents as a way of putting the team down for their farming background. But during one game back in the late 90s, Ipswich were 1-0 up and they decided to flip the script. 1-0 to the Tractor Boys, they sang, and a new nickname was born. Let's head to Leicester, famous for more than just a red, well, orangey cheese and Jamie Vardy. Leicestershire is also the birthplace of fox hunting, hence the Foxes. Next up, turns out apples are not the only fruit that don't fall far from the tree. Bournemouth's nickname, the Cherries, comes from the fact the club's stadium was originally built right next to a bunch of cherry orchards. This next story actually involves two club nicknames. It started with Crystal Palace. They were having an absolute nightmare run back in the early 70s. They'd been relegated after a terrible spell and manager Malcolm Allison decided enough was enough. He wanted a new nickname, something strong, fast and destined for success. Something exactly like an eagle. But there's more to this one. Brighton were in search of a nickname too, and Palace finally gave them what they needed. In a heated match between the two back in 1976, Palace fans began chanting, "Eagles, Eagles." And some clever Brighton fans came up with the perfect reply, "Seagulls, Seagulls." Not all club nicknames have a crazy story though. Take the Gunners. That just comes from the fact a group of munitions workers in the Royal Arsenal factory in Woolwich set up the club in 1886. On the flip side, some nicknames seem simple, but there's a bit more to them, like West Ham. The Hammers is actually nothing to do with the ham part of the name. It comes from the fact the club used to be called Thames Ironworks FC and was made up of workmen and shipbuilders. So next time the away end's chanting their crazy nickname, you'll now know exactly where it came from.
This is Kickoff on talkSPORT with Hugh, Woozencroft and Rory Jennings. This hour we'll discuss Manchester United's summer business. £250 million plus spent, but is it enough for Ruben Amorim's side to take big steps forward, or will they pay for not offloading more of their dead wood? 03717 22 3344. Also, with over £3 billion spent by English clubs, more than all the other top leagues put together, why aren't our teams dominating in European football? Also, for those teams towards the bottom, Wolves, Sunderland, Leeds and Burnley, let us know what you think about how your side's prepared for this season. I think there's a few other sides that we could add to that category as well. After 8 p.m, we'll be talking Arsenal and England as well. This is Kickoff on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. It's 18+, gambleaware.org. Just to bring you up to date with events in the Virtue Trophy, AFC Wimbledon 1, Stevenage 3, Bolton, 10 men Bolton lead Rotherham by a goal to nil. It's Burton 1, Liverpool's under-21s 0, Crewe 4, Chesterfield 1, Doncaster 1, Everton's under-21s 0, Fleetwood 1, Accrington 2, Gillingham 2-0 up on Fulham's under-21s, Lincoln lead Notts County by a goal to nil. It's Peterborough 1, Leyton Orient 1. Orient have had a man sent off as well. That game's live for you on talkSPORT 2. Plymouth 2, Cheltenham 0. Port Vale 2, Leeds under-21s 1. It's 1-1 between Shrewsbury and Walsall. 2-2 between Stockport and Wolves under-21. Same score between Swindon and Reading. Goalless between Wigan and Salford. It's 1-1 between Wickham and Colchester. Goalless between Bradford and Grimsby. Grimsby have had a man sent off in that game. Luton lead Barnet by 2-0. Huddersfield 2, Newcastle's under-21s 0. And Bromley 0, Crystal Palace under-21s 0. I'll try to keep you up to date with those scores throughout the evening as well. But let's talk Manchester United next. Rory, goalkeeper Senny Lamens joining from Royal Antwerp on the final day of the window. We do know, of course, they loaned Jadon Sancho out the door, didn't they, to Aston Villa earlier in the window. They got Brandon Mbeumo from Brentford. Mateus Cunha came in from Wolves. Benjamin Šeško, of course, comes in from RB Leipzig. So a brand new front three, a new goalkeeper, a young goalkeeper, of course, inexperienced goalkeeper. But what do you make of Manchester United's window thus far? If you had to give them a grade?
What's interesting, Hugh, and it's obviously going to be very interesting to get your opinions on this as a Man United fan, but from the outside looking in, you signed some very good players. You scored 44 goals in the Premier League last year. It's obviously not enough. I think only Everton scored less than you that stayed in the Premier League. So it really obviously wasn't good enough. And you've rectified that by going out into the transfer market and signing Premier League proven goal scorers. So there is something quite impressive about that. However, it can't be a good window when Andre Onana is still probably the best goalkeeper at your club. Look, I know you've signed a new goalkeeper, but between Onana, a young kid who's never played in the Premier League, and Bayendir, I'm still inclined to say that Onana is the main man there. And then you've got a midfield issue, and I just don't know what you're doing. I don't know what the midfield is. I don't know what the best team is. And as much as we can talk about this transfer window, I'm all done on Amorim, you know. I thought he was the guy, and he's not. He's just not good enough.
We'll come to the manager in a moment. I'll start with the transfer window. Manchester United have signed good players, but I'm disappointed with their window. I'd give it maybe a C+ because of the quality of the players signed. But the reason that I'm disappointed, Manchester United... Let me just say those two words again. Manchester United finished 15th in the Premier League And the only players who were in their side last year who paid the price for a 15th place finish is Rasmus Højlund, who went to Napoli, and Alejandro Garnacho, who only left the club because of his attitude. The message to our changing room after finishing 15th at a club with a history that is as big as Manchester United on the salaries that they're all on was, it ain't that bad, lads. We'll give you another crack at it next year.
Yeah.
Virtually every player that was in that team playing last year has stayed. Yeah. I cannot imagine a Bayern Munich, a Real Madrid, even a Juventus, AC Milan, they finished 9th. I imagine they've let go 8, 9, 10 players this summer, that you wouldn't go and overhaul your squad off the back of a horrific season. I know Man United fans are saying, well, who would have signed them?
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Look, regardless of what you think of a player like, say, Bruno Fernandes, let's use him as a case study because he's the public face of the club. He's a club captain. He is the best player in the squad. He is the club captain of a Manchester United team that not only finished 15th, but lost to Tottenham in a European final. How you can still effectively call him captain?
Listen, Manchester United's players were so bad last year, I'm not going to blame their best player, who was Bruno Fernandes. What I would say about Manchester United is they aren't aggressive enough. There's no vision when it comes to their recruitment whatsoever. They still managed to have a saga this summer, unbelievably, even though they got Bryan Mbeumo done in the end. Ultimately, if there was 100 million on the table for Bruno Fernandes in the summer, the response from Man United was financially we don't need to sell him. But there was no vision around that. Should we take £100 million for Bruno Fernandes? There was no question. It's up to him. But when it comes to the likes of Luke Shaw, Casemiro on huge salaries, even those that have done okay, the likes of Harry Maguire when he's played, you can't actually complain with what he's done so far. That's not the point. Anyone at Manchester United who was on a sizable salary should have been told, you are not going to kick another ball for Manchester United. Go and find yourself another club. And United should have put 50 or 60 million pounds towards whatever compensation was due in their contract to facilitate a market for those players so that you can go to other clubs and say you can get them for 70, 80, 90,000 pounds a week, not the 150, 180, 200, 300,000 that we're paying them because we've done the deal with them to negotiate their way out of their contract. There was no vision.
Manchester United. Your issue with the transfer window more? Is your issue with the transfer window more than acknowledging the players that you've brought in and talking about, say, Bryan Mbeumo and how he's a good signer and Matheus Cunha? Yeah. It's about being lumbered with players that have not been good enough at the club for the best part of a decade.
Manchester United's squad overhaul should have begun when they finished 8th under Erik ten Hag. Yeah. He was given an extended contract. He was given money to spend. Last year, they finished 15th. They still haven't decided to overhaul their squad. They've brought 4 players in. Yeah. That's a normal summer. That's what a good Manchester United squad would have been doing in the market, not a team that finished 15th. Yeah. I find it absolutely incredible. Listen, the players they've brought in are good quality players. But the fact they haven't offloaded more players and that they essentially have the same defence and the same midfield that they had last season is crazy.
Mbeumo, Sesko, Cunha. Overall, are you happy with those 3 signings?
2 players who've been doing it in the Premier League. Another high potential youngster, same as the goalkeeper, high potential youngster. I'm not going to complain about that. Yeah.
So it's more the statement.
I feel for them because if you watch the midfield and defence and the patterns of play and the chance creation last season, Ruben Amorim's team weren't good at that. Yeah. So it is now put on those 3 players. Go on then, we'll put you out there, win us games. Yeah. You've done it for other clubs. The question is, are they getting the platform to do that with Ruben Amorim's tactics? And I guess that brings us back to your point around the manager.
Yeah, and also I think that everybody has a line, don't they? Everybody has a line where they kind of go, that's enough. Like, we all have a line in the sand that once it's crossed, there's no going back. I thought that the Ruben Amorim appointment was an impressive one. I thought it was a noble appointment. I thought it was a progressive appointment. I thought it was an intelligent appointment from Manchester United. And it can still be all those things, but be wrong. When VAR was a concept, for example, I was really in favour of VAR. I thought it was going to do great things for the game. I have now totally changed my mind on that. It was a noble experiment that, in my opinion, hasn't worked. Ruben Amorim was a noble experiment that, in my opinion, hasn't worked. But the line in the sand came at Grimsby when he was hiding from the penalties. I just don't think you recover from that. I just don't think there is a world where Ruben Amorim is capable of reigniting this Manchester United squad. I think his dogmatic approach, this desperation and commitment to system, and I don't understand these managers that are like that. Be pragmatic and find a way to win. You got Russell Martin at Glasgow Rangers. The system has to dominate everything. It's nonsense.
I understand your view on that, but the question is, if Ruben Amorim is that manager, and you as a Manchester United hierarchy want to support that, and you say he's our guy and what he needs are players for a specific system, I agree with you. I think it's lunacy that you can only use certain types of players in one very specific style. But if he's your manager and that's what he's asking for, go and give it to him. There's no midfielder that's been brought in to a midfield two that Manchester United have to play in the Premier League that needs dynamism. It doesn't have it. They haven't addressed it.
Your two best players from last year, two of the better performing Manchester United players from last year were Bruno Fernandes and Amad Diallo. Amad Diallo is playing on some wing-back position, and Bruno Fernandes is playing in a weird defensive midfield role alongside Casemiro, all to accommodate this system. And then you've got the issue of Kobbie Mainoo. And you're like, if Kobbie Mainoo was to leave Manchester United, or Manchester United needed to make a decision between Amorim or Mainoo, I've seen nothing in Amorim to suggest that he should be prioritised over a player like Kobbie Mainoo, who won Manchester United an FA Cup and started for England in a European final. I just don't get what's going on at the club. And I've now come to the conclusion that while Ruben Amorim is there, nothing is going to change.
My only hope is that Amorim does change himself. He can stay, but he needs to... Listen, he's a young manager. This is something that I think we need to be clear about. It's Manchester United. It's a very big club, huge history. The goal will always be to go and win the biggest trophies in the game. They didn't bring in one of the best managers in the world. They didn't. They brought in a guy who had a really good record in Portugal, but wasn't even managing in one of the top 5 leagues in Europe, right? It's not like you've gone and got a manager who got to a Champions League final. We did that with Erik ten Hag. Well, he got to a semi-final with Ajax. Liverpool went and did that with Jurgen Klopp. You know, someone who, okay, they might not have won everything, but have shown the qualities that make you think they might. Currently, I don't think Manchester United did that. What they did was they brought a project manager and they said, maybe in 4 or 5 years, he will be one of the best in the world. So if we didn't think there was going to be teething problems, we're very naive. Ruben Amorim's come from Sporting Lisbon. Everyone's talking like he should be one of the best managers in the world. Now, I get it. You know, Mikel Arteta is a first-time manager at Arsenal. He's turned them into a team that got to semi-finals of the Champions League, who's come second 3 years in a row. But he was given time through some very tough periods. All I say is, as a Man United fan, I agree with you. It doesn't look great. The results are appalling. He will get fired if they continue in this way. Like that's nothing to do with us. But for me as a fan right now, I think you need to give him time that line in the sand hasn't come for me. It might come in 5 or 6 games. I'm not saying I'm that far away from it. It might come at the end of the season. But right now, as we talk today, I think you just need to make sure. You need to be 100% sure this guy isn't the guy. There's still a question mark over the players. Like I said, it's most of the squad that he had last year. It's most of the squad that Erik ten Hag had. We still have that question mark over the players at Manchester United not being good enough, not having the mentality, not having the character. And when he said they spoke loudly against Grimsby, that's what I think he was talking about. We're going to continue to discuss Manchester United. So if you've got a view on them, give us a call, 03717 22 3344. You can grade their transfer window and ask, I guess, if Ruben Amorim can survive this season. 03717 22 3344. You're listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. It's 18+, gambleaware.org. Our biggest competition to date is now live, and we're giving you the chance to win Oasis tickets plus a whopping 25 grand. 2 lucky winners, not 1 but 2, will win a pair of Oasis tickets when they return to Wembley on the 27th of September. That's not all. Alongside the tickets, that whopping 25 grand. For all the details and how to enter this amazing competition, just listen up.
18 plus, UK excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win, text the word Oasis to 83338 and you're in the draw. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission. Or you can enter for free by calling 0330 880 treble38. All entries must be received by the 19th of September at 9 a.m. This is a talkSPORT limited promotion run on talkSPORT, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
Hugh, Woozencroft and Rory Jennings with you on kickoff this evening. Just a quick reminder, Manchester City have let one of their club legends, I'd say, go. İlkay Gündoğan has left the club once again, went to Barcelona, came back. Now he's gone to Galatasaray on a free transfer, 34 years old. He's agreed a deal until the end of the 2027 season with the Turkish champions. Nice move for him as well, with his Turkish background. Gets to go to Istanbul, maybe for the end of his career as well. So
yeah, I saw a picture of him. I saw a picture of him when he was about 5 in a Galatasaray cap. So it really is like a really nice moment for him.
Well, I think he's one of the best midfielders, I've got to say, in Premier League history.
Oh, he's an icon.
Yeah.
He's an icon, especially for Man City. Like, if nothing else, that cup final. Do you remember the goal that he scored at Goodison Park towards the end of one season, where he basically turned into in the most?
Yeah.
Do you remember? It was like the most important period of the season. He suddenly started scoring like goals left, right, and centre.
Yeah.
Real big game player, excellent footballer.
So Edison's gone. İlkay Gündoğan's gone as well. Kevin De Bruyne went as well.
It really is the end of an era.
Yeah.
And it will be interesting to see. This is now Pep Guardiola. It's a big challenge for him.
Like I said earlier,
4.0.
I think the goal for him is improve these players as much as you can, imprint Pep Guardiola's quality onto our young squad, and then the next manager can pick up from there. I don't think the goal is still to win big stuff, but I don't think he's going to be strictly judged by that metric.
Do you agree with this, that everything that we're witnessing now from Pep Guardiola and how difficult he's finding it and what happened to his team last year, they lost 9 out of 11 games. I feel like everything that we're learning from Pep Guardiola in this iteration of him, it just amplifies the true genius of Sir Alex Ferguson.
I mean, listen, he's been incredible as well.
No doubt.
A long period of longevity. What I'd say is he is asking himself questions at the moment, and it feels like his team is a bit of an experiment. He's brought in a new coaching staff. He's trying to take on their ideas, trying to find out which one of those, which set of ideas that they brought to him he can really use and be effective in the Premier League. I think they're a work in progress City at the moment.
No, I think, look, don't get me wrong. Guardiola is undoubtedly a genius. I just feel that what we're learning about how difficult he's finding things at the moment, everything that happened to him last year, all it does to me is amplify the true brilliance of Sir Alex Ferguson.
Let's talk Manchester United, since you've been so kind to Sir Alex. We talked about Ruben Amorim, we talked about the transfer window for Manchester United, and now United fans, you get to have your say on talkSPORT. 03717 223344. If you want to join the conversation, let's rattle through them. Steve is a United fan. Good evening.
Oh, hi. I thought you were a United fan as well.
I am.
Amorim's a good manager. You know why?
I said I'd keep him.
He broke the mold in Portugal, right? In his first 2 seasons, just like Fergie at Aberdeen, won the title twice, right? And the cup, right? It's have enough depth or quality. So
they were 8th.
Rebuild United.
They were 8th. They finished 8th under Roy Ten Hag, who's just got sacked after 2 games.
And one silverware.
Ten Hag got the sack. Right? Why did if you say 8? Why did
because
8th
wasn't good enough. Because 8th wasn't good enough.
8th and silverware.
No, he should have lost. Been sacked after the FA Cup final and wasn't allowed to buy new players. Everybody knew he was going to go. If he'd have lost the cup final, he'd have gone. So he was lucky to win the cup final. And we won the cup final because he dropped what's his name, Hoyland. Hoyland did not have any play in the final. And if Amorim had dropped Hoyland for the European against Spurs, we would have won. Right? Hoyland can't score if an open goal from a bar if a barn door's in front of him. And that's what happened.
Okay, right? Steve, thank you very much indeed. I appreciate it. He doesn't think the squad is good enough for Ruben Amorim at Manchester United right now. He doesn't blame the manager.
I mean, look, the squad isn't particularly gifted, but the squad is more gifted than Amorim is making it look.
Exactly.
Like I saw a stat that blew my mind. He had played more games at Manchester United than points he had accrued.
Up until the win over Burnley.
Yeah, up until the win over Burnley.
29 games, 28 points in the
29 games, 28 points. You have managed more games than points you have accrued. That's sackable in itself.
Let's speak to Rob, Manchester United fan, who's next up on talkSPORT. Good evening. What do you make of the transfer window for United?
Evening, guys. I don't hate the transfer window I'm the same as you, Hugh. I like the transfers that we have made. I kind of understand why we haven't been able to get more out the door, because the previous front office management over the last few years have given these absurd contracts out that we just can't get rid of now.
I understand, but again, I felt we should have put a lot of money aside to try and, if we need to compensate players to get them to leave, to help grease the wheels so they can move to other clubs. I think United should have done that quite aggressively. It's quite clear they didn't.
Yeah, I think that's true, to be fair, and that's not a mechanism I was thinking about. If there was a way to have got those guys out the door in July, so that, that space had been created with time enough for us to actually replace them.
Well, listen, we heard the reports, didn't we, the day after the Europa League final, that Ruben Amorim had told Alejandro Garnacho in front of the whole squad, tell your agent to find you another club. That should have been a group message rather than an individual one. So there you go. What do you make of Kobbie Mainoo? I know you wanted to talk about him in midfield and Bruno Fernandes as well. Should Kobbie have been loaned when he asked for it? Would that not be better for his development?
No, I mean, my honest opinion is we should be playing a 4-3-3 that's got space for him and Fernandes and
we can all see it.
Rotation.
The man who matters can't see it, mate.
Exactly. No, exactly. It's just, I get that it's the formation that has got Amorim to where he is. And it was, in the season that he joined us last year, when, to be fair, he didn't actually want to join us at that moment, he was having massive success with it in Europe as well, wasn't he? But it's just, you have to be adaptable enough at some point to think, okay, 28 points in 29 games, did you say? This isn't working. I need to try something else.
I appreciate your call, Sean. I understand exactly what you're saying. Listen, I'd play a 3 in midfield, but I'm not a coach. I certainly haven't done what Ruben Amorim has done. If he continues how he's playing at the moment and Manchester United continue to get poor results, he'll be gone very, very soon, I imagine. So we'll see what happens with Amorim. Yeah, on the players themselves, again, the quality isn't there. We can all see it. Why are they still at Manchester United? If it's big salaries, you're going to have to pay compensation to get them out. I know other big clubs would have done the same. We've preferred signing the players that we've signed. That's great, but what it means is the rest of the squad has stayed at a very similar level. Let's squeeze in Sean, Manchester United fan, before we break. Good evening.
Evening, chaps. Great show.
What grade are you giving United's summer business?
That's
C minus.
Love that.
B minus, C minus, C minus. Wow.
Yeah. I just think they should have cashed in on Bruno. He's a brilliant player, but I think we could have bought Belieber. There was talks Belieber. I think they could have built a team around Belieber and Mainoo.
Can I ask you a question? The Saudi window doesn't close until September the 23rd. If United are offered 100 million for Bruno Fernandes, but that they can't sign a replacement until January at the earliest, would you sell him?
No, because he can't get the replacement.
You would, wouldn't you, Rory?
Yeah, I think you have to take £100 million now for Bruno Fernandes, regardless. I think Bruno Fernandes is
January,
actually...
In January, I'll definitely take the money.
Do you know what, Sean? I appreciate what you're saying. But Bruno Fernandes, regardless of how good he is and regardless of how highly you rank him compared to the rest of your players in your squad, he doesn't fit this system. And if you were going to be a disciple of this system, if this system is going to be the overarching strategy of who Manchester United are, which, for the record, I think is nonsense. I think it's utter nonsense. But if you were going to commit to Amorim, then you have to have a divorce with Bruno Fernandes. The two just don't go hand in hand.
Well, Amorim is loyal to Bruno. I think, yes, he's a great player. I think, obviously, he's his countryman as well. So I think that comes into play with Bruno. But Bruno's such a, I think, a selfish player for the system. He does what he wants. There's no structure to him. He doesn't hold his position. And as soon as they break that line, that's where we struggle.
Okay, Sean, appreciate your call on talkSPORT this evening. Understand again the points that all of the Manchester United fans are putting forward there. That, yeah, there's some conflicting opinions, but they aren't in a great state. And I've got to say, a big club, having finished 15th, we've signed 3 good players in forward areas. We've got all of the clubs.
There's no balance. You've got no midfield.
No, but listen,
you've got dodgy defence. You've got the worst keeper in the league.
Can I just say, we've got all of the clubs in the Premier League's incomings and outgoings in front of us. There isn't a club who has signed as few players as Manchester United in the entire Premier League. No. They've signed 4 players. No. I'm going through all of them. Every single club has signed more than 4 players. Every single club. So, you know, they say that you've got to spend money to stand still in the Premier League, but you need numbers. You need numbers. And that squad needed an overhaul.
Anyway.
Ineos, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Christopher Vell, Jason Wilcox. They've fairly... I mean, again, Mbumo, Cunha, Sesko, if they can catch fire, then Man United can leap up the table. But if people are talking about this being a year that they could have gone top 6...
No.
Get real.
No. I think the conversation around Manchester United, and I don't say this in any kind of hyperbolic way, are Manchester United going to break into the top half is a question that I will legitimately explore. Anything beyond that, it's ridiculous. Anything beyond that, we're not talking about Manchester United qualifying for Europe. On what basis should we?
And listen, that's my issue. The club said that's the target for this season, and they were serious about it. They would have made a hell of a lot more changes to their squad than what they've done.
You might, and we can explore it. You might qualify for the top half of the Premier League. That's the extent of it.
Listen, fingers crossed. Last year it was top 9, possibly with a few weeks to go to get into Europe. So hopefully the clubs that are in Europe can help us out this season. We'll see. Anyway, we'll talk about a transfer record in terms of the money spent in this window. Over £3 billion. What does that mean for the game? That's next here on Kickoff.
Roy Hodgson's feeling really sorry for Marc Guehi. After his move to Liverpool fell through over the lack of a replacement and pressure from Oliver Glasner, Hodgson told talkSPORT Palace should be the winners here.
He's such a good player, to have a player of that calibre and a captain and leader of that calibre still with you should be seen as advantageous, but it remains to be seen, of course, how upset he may have been by what's happened during.
But former Palace chairman Simon Jordan says Liverpool could well be back in January.
You're listening to Kick Off on talkSPORT with Hugh, Woozencroft and Rory Jennings. Keep your calls coming in on 03717 223344. Happy to talk about your team. We are going to talk about the promoted clubs as well. So if you support Sunderland, Leeds United or Burnley, I want you to tell us about your transfer window. I know I've seen a very unhappy Leeds United fan a little bit earlier on today. He's kind of furious with how things went on the final day of the window. Really intrigued to think, to hear really if you guys think your transfer window might have cost you a place in the Premier League for next season possibly, but who knows. Sunderland fans, Burnley fans, want to talk to you as well. Wolves fans too, 03717 223344. Brentford, all of you. If you feel like you needed to spend good money to stay in the Premier League, I want to know how your window went. 03717 223344. Let's talk about the window as a whole. £3 billion, over £3 billion spent in the Premier League. That was more than the spending in the Bundesliga, Serie A, La Liga, and Liga in France combined. The Premier League is the Super League.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
No, it's horrible. It really is hateful what's happened to football. And when I talk about the sort of riches of the Premier League, I don't talk about it with any kind of delight. I think it's horrible what's happened. I think it's horrible that we have a situation where it's more desirable to play for Sunderland, for example. Sunderland are a club that I massively respect. But Granit Xhaka left Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League to join Sunderland. It shouldn't really work like that. Like the example that I've used before, and it really did hit me hard. I can remember exactly where I was and everything, is when I got a ping on my phone, and Ajax are a club that I adore. I love what they represent. I love the history of Ajax. I was just about old enough to remember that 95 team that won the European Cup, all came through their youth system, that incredible Patrick Kluivert win. And I just think that the prestige of Ajax is almost incomparable to basically any. Yeah. I remember Brighton beat them in Europe. I remember getting a ping on my phone and it went Brighton 2, Ajax 0. I was like, what are you talking about? Those two teams shouldn't even be playing. They shouldn't even be playing one another. That's not a slight on the meritocracy and the pyramid structure of football. It's just because of the money in the Premier League, European giants, former European giants, Marseille, Ajax, Benfica, they're being left behind by clubs like Bournemouth, Brentford and Brighton. And it's wrong. It really is horrible.
My issue with the spending in the Premier League is, what do we get for the money? For that £3 billion...
You get the best players in the world, basically, all of them.
I'm talking about quality of football.
You might not get that, but you do get the
but that's my issue. The quality of the teams that we should be producing with the money that we're spending, we should be watching irresistible football from most teams virtually every week.
Yeah.
We should see, and this is the unfortunate thing, because our teams have money, it's like they have to spend it. We don't see in the Premier League the level of coaching and sporting project that we should, i.e. time. That money should afford coaches time. They should have great players. Go ahead, coach them. We should be seeing in 2 or 3 years most clubs playing great football.
The problem is the product that we were used to in the Premier League. When Premier League football was at its best, whatever era you decide that football was at its best, in my opinion, the best ever period of football was the late 90s, early 2000s. I'd say anything, maybe even into the 2000s, maybe anything from 95 to 2005. I think what you had then was enough old football, of what old football represented. Enough, you had affordable tickets. You had, depending on how old you are, you may have had terracing. If you're a Chelsea fan, you would have sat on the benches. You had relatable footballers, but you also had safe stadiums. You had iconic players. You had the likes of technical ability. You had Gianfranco Zola on the pitch, but a £10 ticket. It was like the perfect balance of everything. And when you think about the football in its purest form, Premier League years and all that, what's happened now, and this is partly because of Pep Guardiola, he has diluted football in terms of what it should be. The cut and thrust. We now have teams that have possession for the sake of possession. The product itself isn't enthralling. Like, when was the last time someone had a shot from 30 yards? Do you know, like...
Well, Soboslai's goal wasn't bad.
Yeah, free kick, direct free kick, though. Like,
in open play,
when
you
Steve,
mean?
You know when Steve Gerrard used to pick the ball up and ping it? Frank Lampard used to pick the ball up and ping it. Michael Essien pick the ball up and ping it. It doesn't happen anymore because there is a risk now that if you have a shot, say you have a shot that hits the bar, you're more likely to be subbed by your manager than applauded.
Yeah, you're going to give possession away, and we're trying to control games.
And you have possession for possession's sake.
And the thing is, the people that love football and tactics would say that there are incredible coaches in the Premier League. Yes, quite clearly there are. There are fantastic players in the Premier League. Yes, clearly that is true as well. But without a question, there should be 4 English teams in the last 8 of the Champions League, given the money that is in this league. We've got 6 teams in it this year. There should be no reason why we aren't back at that stage. We've got a couple of semi-finalists at least, if not 2 English finalists.
I think
because of the money
that
is being spent in this country. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But the point is, if I said to you who are the best teams in Europe, you wouldn't be like, it's 5 English teams and Real Madrid.
No, but you know what I would say, Hugh? I would say
Nottingham
Forest have a significant chance of winning European silver. I would say Crystal Palace in that competition have a serious chance of winning European silverware.
The only reason I kind of would counter that is the reformulation of those competitions has made English clubs stronger in them. Yeah. So that's the real reason.
But that's not what it should be. Like, I think that we're not far off a situation where you're going to have... Look, you had Tottenham Hotspur and Manchester United, 2 abysmal teams. Tottenham fans and Manchester United would agree. They were the worst version of their own self. And they were in the final of the European
again,
competition.
that's what I mean. You know, before those competitions were changed, I don't think that would have happened.
Oh, fine. Yeah. But they shouldn't have been there even when the competition changed. It was the worst Manchester United team I've ever seen. It was also one of the worst Tottenham teams I've ever seen. And they both made it to a European final. That shouldn't have happened. Yeah. It simply happened because you can be a dreadful Premier League team, but you will still have so many more expensive and high-value players than Lazio will have. And that's where it's gone wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, I think, what are we turning this money, this spend, this... I think because there's so much money here, clubs are choosing every summer 7 out, 7 in, or 6 out, 6 in, where it's like spending money for money's sake. Is it truly conducive to being a better team than you were last year?
But this is what's happening.
6 or 7 new players every year.
The problem is, it's almost self-fulfilling. This is how it's going to go. You know when it was Ruud van Nistelrooy, wasn't it? He was at PSV. His PSV team were doing really well, and there was a chance that they were going to win the Eredivisie until the December. Do you know what happened? His front 2 was Noni Madueke and Cody Gakpo. And what happened was 2 Premier League clubs came along with their sort of despicable money sloshing all over the place, launched it into the Eredivisie, launched it into Eindhoven, and went, we're taking them, and their title charge fell apart. Simply because we can. Because for us, for English clubs, and this isn't good, but for English clubs, that kind of money is changed down the back of the sofa. Whereas PSV cannot turn down that kind of dough. And I think that we now have a situation where you've got 2 terrible English clubs in the Europa League final. You had a Chelsea team that weren't exactly pulling up trees, canter to winning that trophy. West Ham United won it previously. I think Crystal Palace have a really good chance of winning it this year. There is a dominance of English football. There really is. Okay, look, Paris Saint-Germain won the European Cup, but it could have been, Arsenal, Liverpool this year. Who's going to stop them?
We're going to hear from football finance expert Stefan Borson after the break. But if you've got a view on financially, in terms of the money that's spent, what it means for football, what it means for English football right now, those PSR rules, all of that stuff, in terms of this transfer window, how do you view the finances in the game? 03717 22 3344. If you support a promoted club, still want to hear from you as well, give us a call. You can drop us a text on 81089. And we'll be back with you straight after this. You're listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT. You're listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT. Hugh, Woozencroft and Rory Jennings with you, taking a look at the transfer window as a whole. Thank you for being with us throughout the summer with the Transfer Insiders. Tonight we return to kick off properly, and from here on out throughout the season, over 500 live games. We'll have Champions League football for you, Premier League football, and the rest throughout the campaign. So much to bring you. But tonight we're just looking back at the transfer window as a whole. And even though there's a lot to be said about players on the field, who came, who went, I think there were some bigger things that came out of it. Earlier on, we touched on what player contracts are really worth in light of Johan Vissla leaving Brentford and obviously Alexander Isak leaving Liverpool. Let's hear from Stefan Borson, who has a view on PSR. He spoke on our Deadline Day show last night. Of course, football finance expert. He was highly critical of the PSR rules within the Premier League. Have a listen.
But we've now got players talking about it, right? I mean, that tells you there's a problem. So the players are talking about it. They think it's unfair. You've got good players having to leave because you've got to generate the profit because you missed out by a point. You know, there's no long-term thinking. So it's not, nobody's saying when you've got 2 or 3 years of transition where you can invest and you can try and get into the Champions League. You maybe have been in the Europa. You can steady as you go. There's none of that. There's very, very hard limits, and it's not going to change in terms of, certainly the UEFA limits, it's not going to change. This is a 70%, effectively a 70% cap on that calculation, which is not just as simple as taking the turnover and looking at the wages. It's a bit more complicated than that. But that 70% is going to be a problem for any team who's trying to crack the Champions League, and particularly if you're a club without revenue of £500 million, and so therefore it's going to go down hard on Aston Villa and Nottingham Forest.
So Stefan Borson talking about some of the limits, constraints that PSR puts on teams, particularly those who want to go into UEFA competitions where the cap comes down even further on clubs. So that's the reason that he was pointing out how difficult it would be for those clubs trying to get into the Premier League. Obviously, it's 70% in terms of their wages to turnover. And so obviously, unless you're a big club with bigger turnover, you're not going to be able to spend as much. And I understand why he's saying it from that perspective. But I do think the wider football perspective in terms of limits on clubs still needs to be there. Every club loses money at the moment. Virtually exclusively, football clubs lose money. And yet they still go out every year. They spend more and more. They lose more and more. And it just rolls over to the next year. So even though he says they're kind of constrained by the rules, imagine if they weren't. Do you know what I mean? Football clubs, it's not like they're all reporting massive profits. Things are going incredibly well. And no, it is an industry that operates on debt and loss, right?
Yeah, it is.
So if you don't control those losses, things could get out of control.
Yeah, and I think what we need regulation. I mean, we often hear, don't we? We often hear fans of clubs who feel like they are unduly and unfairly constrained by PSR. It needs to be that way. Like, whether there are issues with PSR, of course there are. I don't like the way that clubs are now almost encouraged to sell their homegrown players. There's clearly loopholes that don't necessarily work, and they're a byproduct that weren't foreseen. It's not good that Chelsea found it within our interest to sell the likes of Conor Gallagher because they demonstrate 100% profit. But overall, football needs PSR. Like, it is a better thing. And, Newcastle fans seem totally irate with PSR, and I understand why. But prior to their lottery win, they were totally in favour of it. They voted for it. So I do think that regardless of the ins and outs of it and the complexities of it, overall, it's obviously a good thing.
Yeah. And I tend to agree. And I know there are a lot of people that hate the PSR. And I think it's an easy headline for a lot of people in the media who probably don't understand the ins and outs of it. And I understand that Newcastle United, in terms of the well of money that they've got, use them as an example, right? They're not going to go bust, are they? And so for them, it's a difficult thing to take on board. And I definitely think there should be a mechanism for a club like Newcastle to say, well, here's a pot of money that we'll leave to one side. And if we ever get close to going bust, dip into that. Yeah. Because they can put 500 million to one side and say that's for a rainy day. We'll put it in an investment account and it'll grow year on year and it'll be worth $1 billion in 10. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But do you know what?
But other clubs can't do that.
No, of course. But do you know what I find more More damaging to the game than anything, Hugh. You and I are fans of football. Ultimately, the reason that we're sat here is because we both love the game and have loved the game all our lives. I've been obsessed with football since I can remember anything. And yet it feels now that we talk more and more about the finances. It feels now that we have to talk more and more about the legalities than we ever do the beautiful game. Like, what I really want to talk about is an amazing Tony Yeboah-like strike that goes in off the bar at Selhurst Park. That's what I want to talk about.
But here's why I think, I don't know many people, if you know about the Lassana Diarra case, it's reported it could be as big for football as the Bosman ruling. It essentially could lead down the road of players being able to buy out their contracts. So it could be as simple as that when it comes to even the biggest players in the game. They owe a certain amount to the club if they choose to terminate their contract or leave. So Alexander Isak might have owed Newcastle United £25 million, which obviously his new employers would be more than happy to pay, right? So it could change the game completely in terms of the money being spent on players. I'm not totally against that. I just think contracts need to change now. This release clause thing, I think every player should be looking for a release clause. Obviously, they're going to be different depending on which year of the contract you're in, but ultimately there needs to be easier ways for clubs, for players to get out of clubs.
Also, it's beneficial to the clubs. It's beneficial to everybody, for everybody to know exactly where they stand. Yeah. So and it's one line in a contract. It's not a huge amount of work, regardless of the player, regardless of the qualities of the player, regardless of the club, regardless of the size of the club. Simply put a line in there that says this is our starting point for if we ever sell this player. So Alexander Isak going to Liverpool, for example, it wouldn't be nonsensical to just have a line in there that says if anybody, Real Madrid, Barcelona, for example, want to ever sign Alexander Isak, the release clause will be 200 million quid. Yeah. Just so that then everybody knows that is the starting point for conversations. And if it sounds like a huge, ridiculous amount of money, but football's moved in a direction where the money actually get to that point very quickly. I think it would just solve an awful lot of problems. And the major issue with this Alexander Isak thing, the major flaw in the whole thing, did Alexander Isak behave badly? Probably. Did Newcastle United renege on their word? Who knows? But the major flaw in the whole thing was not having a release clause in the initial contract. Yeah. If they did, this wouldn't be an issue and we wouldn't be discussing it.
I think we could put that down to his agents and blame his camp, right? Yeah. But I also think that there's a wider message around what football needs to do with their player contracts moving forward, what all clubs need to do, what all agents and players need to do about clauses in their contract. And you almost wonder if it should kind of be mandatory now.
Yeah, just have a line.
Like every single contract that is signed, so that we avoid these kind of things, so we avoid player strikes in the future and all that stuff. Either a club is prepared to pay your release or not.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly. Right? And also, it would save players ever going on strike, because if the club aren't prepared to, if the club think that the release clause is too high, then the sale is a non-starter and nobody even gets their hopes up about moving. It would just save every issue if every single contract had a provision for that player's next move.
I think for players to be able to buy themselves out of their own contracts, I know
that's Messi though. Not Lionel Messi. That is untidy.
But all I'd say is there needs to be like a specific date on that, and it's probably like the start of July, right? If you haven't done it by then, it kind of,
you can't. Yeah,
you can't be doing that on deadline day. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what? I don't fancy being here anymore, or they're up. The team's bought a new player that's going to start ahead of me, so I'm leaving.
Where that gets really difficult though is it gets really difficult if you had a situation where the club that you knew you were going to buy your contract out and go to, if your team was playing them. Do you know what I mean? If you knew that at the end of this season you were going to be buying your contract out to sign for Arsenal, and you were currently a Chelsea player, and Chelsea played Arsenal last day of the season or something like that, it gets really murky.
No, but I still think we have rules around when you can contact a player here, right? So you can't just tapping up.
They seem to be becoming less and less.
Yeah, I know.
It seems to be more and more of a grey area.
Maybe we're going to have to be stricter on those if that is the case. But in terms of PSR, one thing I would say very finally is I don't think it's very strong. I don't think it's massively effective. The teams that want to spend over what they can on PSR, they do it and they'll deal with it later on down the road. The teams that want to use it as an excuse to hold them back, use it as an excuse that it's holding them back. I think if these clubs had the appetite to go and spend what they wanted with the billionaire owners that they have, they'd be doing it. As we've seen with the likes of Chelsea, as we've seen with the likes of Manchester City in the past, if the money's there in their pocket and they truly wanted to go and spend it to improve the squad, they would go and do it. And so I think for a lot of fan bases that are blaming PSR, you can't look too far past your ownership group.
Of course.
Ultimately, clubs with a smaller budget, I get it, but some of the ones owned by billionaires,
Of course, you
come
get
on.
creative. Like there are some clubs, Nottingham Forest, Chelsea, have found ways to spend money. Other clubs are saying that PSR doesn't allow them to spend money. People have got creative with the rules, other people haven't. People have found ways to spend money, other people haven't.
Very quickly, what's your dream scenario for finances in football? Because I would love it if we were like a sustainable model. Every club spent what they made.
What I would
that
like,
would be amazing.
What I would
it's
like,
never going to happen.
The change that I would make is I would totally copy the 50+1 rule of Germany.
Yeah.
Because I have terrible fears that we're going to end up playing games. Chelsea versus Tottenham will start taking place in Adelaide or Hong Kong or New York City. And that's what I believe is going to happen very soon.
I'm always afraid for your pitch owners.
Well, do you know the other
You can't be called Chelsea if you play somewhere else.
And
right?
do you know, and if you
But
notice,
I
it's
still
something-
think they're going to call it the Chelsea Football Club and move somewhere
Hugh,
else.
if you go to Stamford Bridge, you won't see the word Chelsea written anywhere. CFC LDN is written everywhere. We are not Chelsea anywhere at Stamford Bridge. They are doing their best to totally erode the name of the club.
I see. So you think
I think there is something happening, and that is why this German model is exactly what should be happening here. Because fairly soon the game is going to move in a direction that we will not want it to.
Scary.
We'll have to go Super League. The protests will happen.
We are the Super League. I feel sorry for
but those protests
German
around the
fans
Super League
at the moment.
Yeah,
Rory, thank you very much. We'll be back in a minute. You're listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. It's 18+. BeGambleAware.org. We'll be talking Mikel Arteta's Arsenal straight after this.
From the Toffees to the Tractor Boys, the Eagles to the Seagulls, Gunners, Bees, Hammers and Magpies, Premier League teams have got a load of crazy nicknames. Ever wondered where they came from? Let's start with Everton. They're dubbed the Toffees, but why? Well, because when the club was formed, just down the road there were two local toffee shops. Ye Ancient Everton Toffee House and Mother Noblet's Toffee Shop were big fan favourites. Next, they say if you can't beat 'em, join 'em, and that's exactly what Ipswich Town did when it came to their nickname. The term Tractor Boys used to be chanted by their opponents as a way of putting the team down for their farming background. But during one game back in the late 90s, Ipswich were 1-0 up and they decided to flip the script. 1-0 to the Tractor Boys, they sang, and a new nickname was born. Let's head to Leicester, famous for more than just a red, well, orangey cheese and Jamie Vardy. Leicestershire is also the birthplace of fox hunting, hence the Foxes. Next up, turns out apples are not the only fruit that don't fall far from the tree. Bournemouth's nickname, the Cherries, comes from the fact the club's stadium was originally built right next to a bunch of cherry orchards. This next story actually involves two club nicknames. It started with Crystal Palace. They were having an absolute nightmare run back in the early 70s. They'd been relegated after a terrible spell, and manager Malcolm Allison decided enough was enough. He wanted a new nickname, something strong, fast and destined for success. Something exactly like an eagle. But there's more to this one. Brighton were in search of a nickname too, and Palace finally gave them what they needed. In a heated match between the two back in 1976, Palace fans began chanting, "Eagles, Eagles." And some clever Brighton fans came up with the perfect reply, "Seagulls, Seagulls." Not all club nicknames have a crazy story though. Take the Gunners. That just comes from the fact a group of munitions workers in the Royal Arsenal factory in Woolwich set up the club in 1886. On the flip side, some nicknames seem simple, but there's a bit more to them, like West Ham. The Hammers is actually nothing to do with the ham part of the name. It comes from the fact the club used to be called Thames Ironworks FC and was made up of workmen and shipbuilders. So next time the away end's chanting their crazy nickname, you'll now know exactly where it came from.
You're listening to Kick Off on talkSPORT. I am Hugh Woozencroft alongside Rory Jennings this evening. And this hour, we'll ask if Arsenal's great window has left Mikel Arteta with nowhere to hide. We'll also look back at the criticism he faced for his low-risk approach away at Anfield this weekend. We're going to chat England this hour with Henry Winter as well. How does Thomas Tuchel turn the Three Lions into World Cup winners in just 10 months? So 3717 223344. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can drop us a text as well on 81089. This is Kickoff. So let's take a quick look at Arsenal's transfer business, and it's got to be one of the best ever, surely, for Arsenal Football Club. The players that they've brought in, they've got no excuses after this. Eberechi Eze from Crystal Palace. They brought in Victor Gyökeres from Arsenal, from Sporting Lisbon, of course, Martin Zubimendi from Real Sociedad, Christian Norgard from Brentford as well, Christian Mosquera, Valencia, Piero Hincapié, I think that's how you pronounce it, yesterday on loan with a view to buying him next summer from Bayer Leverkusen as well, Noni Madueke from Chelsea. That's a lot of money spent. A lot of good players.
It's a lot of money spent for Arsenal, no doubt, and they have spent a lot of money since Mikel Arteta's been there. But what you have to say with regard to this window is they have attacked it in the most purposeful way. They've looked at their squad, they've looked at their first team, and they've tried to find the slight chink in the armour. And they've identified it and they've secured it. Like, whatever you think of Victor Gyökeres, and I have question marks, they needed a goal scorer. We've been talking about them needing a goal scorer for about 2 years. They went out into Europe and they signed the most prolific goal scorer in Europe. What was it? 98 goals in 102 games. So they gave Arteta the perfect goal scorer. Then they needed a bit of creativity, a spark. You know, they had the best defence in the league last year. They conceded less goals than Liverpool, but they couldn't break teams down. It was those games. It wasn't the games against Liverpool and Man City. It was the games against a low block. So they go and sign maybe the most creative player in the league last season. That's what they did. They did exactly what the manager needed. And now Mikel Arteta has every utensil that he needs. Now he needs to find the silverware.
Let's bring in Tom Canton, who's lead writer for Football London, who joins us on Kickoff this evening. Good evening.
How you doing, guys? You good?
Very well indeed. I'm sure you were hearing what Rory had to say there. If you were to give a grade, firstly, for Arsenal's transfer window, what would you put it at?
Oh, it's got to be at least a 9, if not a 9.5. You know, I think they've covered all areas of what they needed. I think Rory summed it up well. You look at the areas of gaps of last season, and they've covered those. And not only that, but they've strengthened the depth, which obviously was a big issue when they lost so many players during the previous season. So I think everywhere you look, there is now strength and there is quality. And you know, Mikel Arteta really does have the tools to try and take on this title for what is going to be a 4th time in 4 seasons.
Do you know what I think is interesting, though, Tom? I think that you and our opinions chime when it comes to the squad. I think that the recruitment has been brilliant. Signing Eberechi Eze in the manner that you did was superb. I think Eze is possibly, after Cole Palmer, my favourite player in the league. Eberechi Eze in full flow is a sight to behold. The issue with Arsenal, perhaps, isn't the squad. You have an excellent squad capable of winning a league. Do you have an excellent manager capable of winning a league?
Well, I guess that's what we're going to find out, you know, this season, because last season, based upon what was available to Mikel Arteta, I look at that campaign, 27 separate injuries, more than anybody else. And the fact that they even finished second, got to 2 semi-finals across different tournaments, I look back at and think, actually, that's kind of stunning. You know, when you look at the teams like Man United and Spurs, who also had really bad injury records, what happened to their campaigns. I know Spurs lifted that Europa League title, and I think there's nuance to that. But you consider where Arsenal finished and what they achieved with that. And I think you build on that with the quality this season, with the players that you've added and the players that exist already, and the players, of course, that we hope are going to return very soon as well after the international break. And I think you've got an ability there to take teams on. And when Liverpool beat Arsenal, that was the first time they'd lost to a Big Six side since April 2023. He's transformed the record, you know, in those particular games. But I don't necessarily think these players are designed for those games. Arsenal dropped points in silly matches in the last couple of seasons. And these players that are coming in are designed to give Arsenal the edge so that they don't drop those points. I think it was 21 or 22 points dropped from winning positions last season. These are signings designed to stop that from happening. So it's how you look at football. And I think that when we come to the end of the season, we'll have a much better idea, of course, about what has been achieved and how it's been achieved. But looking ahead with 3 games gone, it's always slightly more challenging to do that.
I'm one of those that's of the opinion that top managers, top clubs are those that are in the conversation for every trophy each season. It's no guarantee that you're going to win any, but you've got to be there or thereabouts. When it comes to your domestic cup competitions, obviously your domestic league, and the big trophy in Europe, whichever competition you're in, you have to be in them all to win them all, right? There can't be a huge gap between you and the winners in terms of quality. You know, it doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to win anything, but you can't be a million miles away. And I think Arsenal are in that category already. I think Arteta has already brought them to the point.
He's made them a serious football club, no doubt.
But yet I hear people say he has to get us over the line. And not only that, he has to get us over the line in one of the big ones, Premier League or Champions League.
That's also true, though.
So, well, that's the thing. I find it hard to bring on that mode of thinking because of where Arsenal were when he took over. But with all due respect, this is not a team that's been winning Premier League after Premier League or Champions League after Champions League that they can turn around to their manager and say, well, you're not winning the Champions League. Well, you got to go because that happens all the time.
Obviously, Tom's opinion is really important here, right? But just to come back to you on that, there is no doubt that he's made them a serious football club.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to win the European Cup last year, and I had sleepless nights about that. I hadn't felt like that since Arsene Wenger in 06. So he has made that feeling for me possible. Therefore, he deserves credit. But equally, he spent, what, £500 million?
To take Arsenal from where they were to where they are.
Absolutely.
So but it probably would have taken
But they're now capable of winning a league. They've, at various points, been the best team in the league. And Arsenal Football Club, a club with rich history, rich heritage, are a team that aren't satisfied with second best. Tom, I'm right here, aren't I? But do you concede that maybe you'll be more kind and more emotional towards Mikel Arteta, but ultimately he needs to succeed this year?
I think there is absolutely more pressure than ever before on Mikel Arteta this season to lift silverware, because to go 6 seasons without winning anything, having spent the money they spent and being in the position that they're in, would be an incredible disappointment after what has happened. You know, you're never entitled to anything. And I agree with you when talking about the idea that if you're a fan of a club that enters a season and you think to yourself, I'm one of the fans that can support a team that are genuine contenders for every single competition you enter, that's an incredibly privileged place to be as a football supporter, because the vast majority of fans aren't in that position. And Arteta has helped take Arsenal into that position again after so many years of irrelevance, really, and being out of the conversation conversation for so many tournaments. When they won those FA Cups in the 2010s under Wenger, that was somewhat of a surprise actually during that time. But now it's not a surprise that Arsenal go into these seasons as title contenders, because that's the team that Arteta has turned them into. And I think from the perspective of looking at where we're at, and I think when there's a lot of pressure on Arteta, it tends to come from, I feel, people that within the Arsenal fan base in particular have never really been as keen on Arteta. I've had a proud opinion about Arteta for a very long time, of not necessarily a positive angle. And then there's the side from the away supporters, rival supporters, of course, of Arsenal. And the reason I think that exists mainly from the rival side of things is because they're desperate for him to go. I think they're desperate for Mikel Arteta to be gone from Arsenal, because he's the man that's taken Arsenal back into that title relevancy again. And if I was to ask anybody if Arsenal would be stronger or weaker if Arteta left tomorrow, I think it's unilaterally they'd be weaker.
But you know there are a lot of Arsenal fans that would want him to go if he doesn't win a trophy.
Of course. And I would ask them, who would they bring in if that was the case? And where's the guarantee that they bring that? I think that there's absolutely need to have consequences and accountability if you don't achieve things. But I don't think football is a binary action whereby you sit here 3 games into the season and say, if he doesn't win anything this season, he goes. Because that didn't happen last season. But what he did last season, with so little resource of taking them to where he took them to, gave Rory sleepless nights in the Champions League thinking we might win it. That's what it's about. It's being in those contentions. But he has to deliver. And I think there will be scrutiny if he doesn't. But I think it's about that next contract. He's got 2 years left on his current deal. And if he doesn't deliver something in these 2 seasons to earn that next contract, then that's when you have that conversation.
Tom, we've been quite glowing and quite complimentary about Mikel Arteta, and rightly so. I think that he has done a very good job in elevating the club since he's been there. However, just focusing in on what happened at Anfield, to be totally blunt and totally frank, I think he was cowardly in his team selection. What do you think?
I think that he lacked bravery in that selection. I think that he could have gone into that game with a greater level of ambition to try and attack Liverpool, because while I empathise with the selection to a degree, you're going to Anfield, you want to win certain battles and give yourself the best opportunity to come away from that game with something. You've got a world-class midfielder in Declan Rice. I think you've got a top defensive midfielder, arguably world-class in Zubimendi. I don't think you need that third kind of industrious presence in midfield.
Agree.
And even if Ødegaard isn't fit, and even if Eze can't necessarily start, and I think he probably could have, based upon what I saw against Chelsea for Crystal Palace, you've got someone like Ethan Nwaneri who could potentially play in that position as well. And I think that had Arsenal had that extra element of verve and danger and threat when they were more dominant and more threatening and the better team in the first half, I think they could have come away with something more. And then when the second half rolled around and Liverpool grew into the game, they kind of lost that edge. And I still felt the game was only ever going to be separated by either a massive error or a moment of magic. That was kind of the way the game played out. But being on the losing side has kind of highlighted, as you point out, that lack of ambition. If you're going to call it cowardly, that's it's a strong word, but I think that there is an element of being a bit conservative when it comes to that.
For me, it wasn't. I didn't mind the setup. I think the setup was essentially the front 3 players on the counter-attack are going to try and hurt them. And actually, they dominated the game more in the first half than I think they probably thought they would. I thought they probably felt they were going to defend deeper than they did. And actually, Gyökeres, with the way that he likes to carry the ball forward, the 2 quicker pace wide players, I think he felt that they were going to play properly directly on the counter. In the end, it didn't pan out like that. What actually annoyed me was the mentality of it, was what it signified.
Exactly. It's the symbolic nature.
It's the symbolic nature of it.
The symbolic nature of going to Anfield, to play at Anfield early in the season. It's a free hit. Go there and attack. Go there, state your case for the league. When you invariably, when you win the league, whatever team has won it, they've probably done it by going to the champions and winning. Like, it's a statement that you make. When we eventually won a league after 50 years, we went to the Invincibles, we went to Highbury, and Joe Cole slapped Sol Campbell all over the place. And we won the league because we went to their home ground and showed them that we were serious.
I don't think Liverpool walked away from Anfield at the weekend saying they're after us and they're hungry and they're going to be right behind us.
We walked out of that.
That's what disappointed me
Arne
most.
Slot, as soon as the team sheet popped under the door, Arne Slot would have looked at that team sheet, seen Mourinho in it, and gone, "Arteta is terrified of us, lads."
What do you think, Tom?
I think that's utterly. I can't disagree with those points of view because I was disappointed with the lineup. I was there. I was covering the game. I asked Arteta myself after the fixture. I said, do you think that in hindsight, your midfield selection was too conservative? And he pointed to the absence of Ødegaard immediately rather than maybe.
But there were 5 creative players on the bench. There were 5 really good options on the bench. Like, be really brave. Throw the kid in, Max Dowman, give him a go. Throw Wanyeri in, give him a go. It's so early in the season that you can go there, you can attack them. You've seen them look vulnerable to Semenyo. Like,
even against Newcastle with 10 men.
Liverpool's vulnerability isn't the midfield or the attack. It's the back line. So give their manager something to worry about. Give them a problem rather than letting them ask you questions.
Just very quickly, and I do have to ask you very quickly, just before you go, I've asked everyone, in terms of the signings that you've made, you said it was a 9.5 out of 10, maybe a 9, maybe a 9.5. What do you believe Arsenal will achieve this season, given what they did this summer?
I honestly think they will achieve a silverware this season. I just don't know which of the ones it's going to be. That's the problem, because Liverpool are incredibly strong, and I think Man City at the moment at the start of the season have looked a little bit off it, and I don't necessarily think they'll be as competitive maybe as I initially thought. The Champions League is a great opportunity for them. The cup competitions are, but I'd have them down for certainly winning one of the domestic cups and getting incredible. And it's just that. So far, and I think it's that evidence that we lack so far of knowing whether he can do it that keeps me from saying, yeah, they're going to do it. They're going to do it unless I put my biggest optimism hat on in the world. But I'm certain they'll get a domestic cup. But it's just I'm just so short still of saying they're going to win the league or they're going to win the Champions League.
Okay, we'll find out. We'll see. Tom Canton, lead writer for Football London, really appreciate you being with us on talkSPORT this evening. We're going to talk Chelsea. Your beloved Chelsea up next, who just spend and spend and spend. I don't know if you're going to be any better, but we'll find out what Rory thinks about it. You're listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. It's 18+, gambleaware.org. turn this nonsense off.
Beautiful.
Chelsea. We'll be talking Chelsea. If you've got a view on the Blues, 03717 2233 44. Loads of full-time scores, by the way, in the Virtue Trophy tonight. I won't run through them all like I did before, but wins for Stevenage, Bolton, Burton, Crewe, Doncaster, Fleetwood, Gillingham, Lincoln, Leyton Orient, Plymouth, Port Vale, Stockport, Swindon, Colchester as well. Some games still going on. I'll bring you up to date with those full-time scores when those games get to an end. But let's talk about, I'm going to say, some strange business from Chelsea over the summer. Do you know what I mean by this?
I know exactly what you mean, but it isn't actually strange because I can rationalise it. No, it's strange if you're looking at it through the lens of creating a good football team, which you've been conditioned to believe football clubs do. But Chelsea are approaching things very differently. We're not trying to create a fantastic football team. We're trying to create a financial project. We're trying to create a situation where we sign players for X and we sell it for more than X.
The list of players that you've let go of is so incredibly long. I haven't got time on the rest of the show to go through it. We can pick out a few names. João Felix went to Al Nassr for almost 44 million. Renato Vega, Villarreal, 26. Christopher Nkunku to AC Milan, 36. The Nicholas Jackson deal was crazy. Bayern Munich alone with an obligation to buy. If they were to pay everything that they're owed to Chelsea, it's probably going to be around, the 80 million mark. Yeah. Unbelievable.
I mean, Leslie Ugochukwu went for over 20 million, I think.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot. What we are excellent at.
You sold over £300 million worth of players this summer.
And now what we are excellent at, not something that I necessarily hold in high regard, and you certainly can't put it in a trophy cabinet, but we're excellent at making money on players. And that's what we're trying to do. Like what I think is a real shame is, when Chelsea sold Noni Madueke, say we sold Noni Madueke for a lot of money, say the ambition at Chelsea was to win the league. What you do when you sell Noni Madueke is you go and you buy Eberechi Eze if you were trying to win the league. If you're trying to turn a profit, what you do is you sell Noni Madueke. If you're trying to turn a profit, you go and you sign Jamie Gittins. That's what we did. We're not trying to win the league. If you're trying to win the league, you look at the Chelsea squad at the moment, you look at the glorious scenes of New York City, and you think, right, how do we win the league? What do we need in this squad? And anybody with any modicum of understanding of football will go, they've got goals galore, they're top heavy, they've got a good midfield, the centre-halves are an issue. Then Levi Colwill gets injured, and you go, the centre-halves are really an issue. Then Wesley Fofana is perennially injured, so you go, the centre-halves are really an issue. And then you factor in the goalkeeper. So you go, right, who do we need to sign? You've got the dodgy goalkeeper, then you've got the two issues at centre-half. So who are you going to sign? Alejandro Garnacho. And you're like, we're not trying to build a good football team anymore, are we? The reason that you sign Alejandro Garnacho is because if Alejandro Garnacho's career goes as it might go, he's worth 100 million quid in a few years. Mm-hmm. If it goes as it might go in a negative sense, he's worth what we paid for him in 2 years' time. Yeah. So you'll never lose money. And that's what we're doing. Sadly, what we're not doing is trying to build a team capable of winning the league.
It's a lot of work to essentially stand still, because I don't think Chelsea are going to be any worse, really. No, but I don't think they're going to be much better.
We've got a little bit better, because I think, is this fair to say? This time last year, before we knew that Tottenham and Manchester United were going to be woeful, this time last year, if I said, where do you think Chelsea will finish?
No, you've definitely got better since the project started.
What we've done is,
this season, do you think you're going to be higher than... Where did you finish? 4th?
This season, I think we'll be better. I think where we are now, we exist in a purgatory. We exist in a position... We're nowhere near as good as Arsenal, and we're nowhere near as good as Liverpool. But I believe that we're better than everyone else, and we're far better than the teams that we were comparable to. This time last year, we were comparable to Newcastle United, Aston Villa, Tottenham, Manchester United. We have pulled so far away from them. We are now the third best team in the country. Some would argue that Man City will finish above us. I think we'll finish above them. But we're just nowhere near the teams above us.
From a fan's perspective, though, how disappointed are you that a goalkeeper never came in, that an experienced centre-half, the two things that the club's really crying out for, didn't come in?
Yeah, I mean, it's so nonsensical, because what we are on the cusp of doing is launching a serious and sustained bid for the league. You win the European trophy. I'm not suggesting it was a particularly glamorous trophy, but we still won European silverware. We then went to New York City and destroyed the European champions, battered Paris Saint-Germain, educated Luis Enrique. And that could be what you could do under normal circumstances, is use that as a springboard to really go for the jugular of the Premier League. Mm-hmm. And we're not even trying to do that. Like, we're signing Garnacho on the last day of the season when Robert Sanchez is still the best goalkeeper at the club. We're signing Garnacho on the last day of the season when Fofana is injured, Colwill is injured, you're relying so heavily on Trevor Chalobah, who I love. But Trevor Chalobah's an excellent footballer who I voted to be Player of the Year. But he shouldn't be the best centre-half at the club. No. So it's a shame. But effectively, I kind of know where we are with this ownership. We're not trying to build a team to win the league.
What's the grade you give Chelsea's transfer window?
I probably a B, because we have signed some good players. We've got rid of some good players as well. I mean, I feel released that I no longer have to pretend that Nicholas Jackson's a good footballer.
No.
I never have to have that conversation again where I have to argue that he can do a job for the team and all that. So getting him off the books is good. Getting Raheem Sterling off the books is good. I think people kind of forget that side of the transfer window. We always focus on the players that come in.
You're harsh on Jackson.
Jackson's one of the most profligate footballers I've ever seen.
Yeah, he was wasteful in front of goal, but his numbers weren't bad either.
I don't care.
He was wasteful.
You know when people talk about numbers,
he had a great relationship with Cole Palmer. I think he helped bring the best out of Palmer.
He had a great relationship with Cole Palmer because Cole Palmer is a genius. Like imagine the kind of relationship Cole Palmer would have with a good footballer if he had that relationship with Nicholas Jackson.
Delap he's missed a step by going to Chelsea. It's a great move for him.
Yeah, the injury is a real shame.
I don't think he was going to be your frontline number 9. I think João Pedro is.
Yeah, but Liam Delap would have played a lot of football for us because if our season goes as we hope it will go, we'll play in excess of 60 games. And it's a real shame that he's injured. We've obviously had to bring Marc Guehi back from the Sunderland loan. So no, I don't think it's a great window. But what we will have done with this window is turn a huge profit, which on some weird metric now, football fans seem to see as a victory. I don't. I like old-fashioned silverware, Hugh, but some you know what football's like now. Apparently, turning a profit.
Hold on. You picked up 2 bits of silverware.
Yeah, but this year I think we should be going. This year I think we should be going for the Premier League title, and we're not because we didn't sign the player. Like if Chelsea had gone out and signed Donnarumma on the last day of the season and Marc Guehi on the last day of the season, which would have cost a combined total of about 60 million quid.
What stuns me, by the way, we're sitting here talking about you not getting a better goalkeeper in the squad. You tried to sign Mike Maignan
and argued about 5 million
from AC Milan, argued about £5 million because you felt you needed him to win the Club World Cup.
I know.
You went to the Club World Cup, you won it without him, and then decided we don't need a new goalkeeper at all.
I know.
Which is
ludicrous. No, it's ludicrous. Look, on the final day of the season, we signed Garnacho. If you use that same money, pretty much, you get Marc Guehi and you get Donnarumma, and then Chelsea are in a title contention.
Are you, by the way, excited to see Alejandro Garnacho in a Chelsea shirt?
No, I don't.
Great young player coming to the club.
I don't care. I don't care. I really don't care because I think that principle is something that's majorly lacking in football and society, but that's a different thing. I think principle and decorum are something that football needs more of and society needs more of. And the fact that he disrespected Manchester United the way that he did, wearing a Marcus Rashford Aston Villa shirt whilst a Manchester United player, disrespecting the office of Manchester United manager, I think is such an abomination that I don't really want that distracting presence at the club.
He's going to be entertaining for Chelsea fans, that's for sure. Speaking of decorum, by the way, we'll be speaking to Henry Winter up next. We'll be talking England, Thomas Tuchel, and whether he can turn England into World Cup winners in the next 10 months or so. A disappointed Chelsea fan. Still going to have a good season, Rory. Take it easy. You're listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. It's 18+, gambleaware.org.
Roy Hodgson's feeling really sorry for Marc Guehi. After his move to Liverpool fell through over the lack of a replacement and pressure from Oliver Glasner, Hodgson told talkSPORT Palace should be the winners here.
He's such a good player, to have a player of that calibre and a captain and leader of that calibre still with you should be seen as advantageous, but it remains to be seen, of course, how upset he may have been by what's happened during.
But former Palace chairman Simon Jordan says Liverpool could well be back in January and Guehi's stock is only going to rise.
You're listening to Kick Off on talkSPORT with Hugh Woozencroft alongside Rory Jennings this evening. Let's talk England. They'll be playing Andorra in a World Cup qualifier, Serbia a few days later during this international window. Those games both live here on talkSPORT, starting this weekend with a game against Andorra at Villa Park. Let's talk to Henry Winter, football writer, Sunday edition host, of course, who joins us now on talkSPORT. Good evening, Henry.
Evening, Hugh. Evening, Rory. How are we?
Henry.
Very well indeed. Slightly confused, I have to say, by Thomas Tuchel's decision to call up Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Adam Wharton of Crystal Palace has pulled out injured. Thomas Tuchel was at lengths to tell us how difficult it was to leave out Curtis Jones of Liverpool last week, and yet he has the opportunity to call him into the squad and chooses Loftus-Cheek, who hasn't appeared for England, I think, since 2018. Why do you think he's done it?
Don't know whether maybe there's some old Chelsea connection there. I'm slightly more surprised that Jack Grealish hasn't been called in. I know that he's obviously a different player to Loftus-Cheek, but then so's Curtis Jones. So surprised at that. I mean, pleased for Joel Kwanzaa, who's had a really good year, obviously, for the under-21s, getting his move to Germany and doing well there, already scoring in one of his 3 games so far. So, but yeah, Loftus-Cheek's not played since 2018. Yeah, slightly surprising. But Jack Grealish, I just think his performances and the way he sort of behaved and focused over the summer to get sort of super fit, got his loan move, obviously responding. Was it 4 assists already? He can play off the left. He can play as a 10. Not that England have got any issues at 10. But yeah, so I'm a bit more surprised about Grealish, to be honest.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. Elliot Anderson of Nottingham Forest has got his first call up. Let's hear from Thomas Tuchel very quickly. He spoke to talkSPORT last Friday. He gave us his thought process behind his squad selection, so maybe this will reveal something. Have a listen.
It's always kind of difficult. We always have long discussions about whom to pick, how many players we pick, and because there are a lot of players who deserve it. So it's in the end about margins and about the mix and about how we want to build the group and what we want from the group. This is our decisions. We wanted to we decided to build a tighter squad, to build a more competitive squad, to have more competitive, to be actually in the group, and not only to be on the pitch, but to actually be in the group and be in camp. I think this is the message behind it, and this is the idea behind it. There were some difficult decisions that we took now before camp, and gives me then the freedom to not have these talks and these decisions to make on a match day -1 and tell players that they're not even in the squad.
So Thomas Tuchel there talking about the high competition he wants, Henry, in his squad. I mentioned Elliot Anderson, Jed Spence called up, of course, no Trent Alexander-Arnold. I'm concerned by those comments. The reason I'm concerned is he's on a short-term contract, the job of which is to win the World Cup next year. It's not about building anything, really, for Thomas Tuchel. So I'm surprised to hear him say that. Are you?
I mean, the encouraging thing was it was almost a Lee Carsley squad when you saw 6 of the players, now 7 with Joel Kwanzaa coming in. And it's unfortunate that Adam Wharton, who obviously wasn't in the Euros in the summer because of concussion, that he's pulled out, because it would have been really good to see Wharton, but he's a Carsley player. So, I mean, what you almost need is some of the enthusiasm and freedom with which England's under-21s played in the summer, which brings us to Elliot Anderson, as you're alluding to. I mean, I'm getting bored saying Elliot Anderson to be in this squad, because although it was interesting, you know, we spoke to Tuchel on Friday about it, and he says he's more an 8 than a 6, and Wharton's more a 6 than an 8. But certainly, if you watched Elliot Anderson playing for the under-21s, he can definitely play that role alongside Declan Rice. I'm not necessarily saying he should start, but he should definitely be in Tuchel's thinking. He was outstanding in the summer. England's best player out at the under-21s with Livramento. The two of them are outstanding. Livramento's obviously in the squad as well. So I think it's, you look at the England squad and you look at the players who are not in the squad, Jude Bellingham, Cole Palmer, obviously out injured, Levi Colwill out injured, 3 outstanding players. England have got the players. And now it's just a question of having an expert coach who can tweak things towards the end of the games. We saw that with Chelsea. We've seen that in Tuchel's club career, Champions League final. He can make those decisions. He's very good at game management. But what we also need is a philosophy, which I know it's different from the under-21s to the seniors in terms of the step up and the cultural change and the expectations and the scrutiny. I get all that. But we need a little bit more of the freedom of the handbrake being taken off and this excellent generation of players being allowed to go out and express themselves, as many of them do for their club. So I think that's what we're hoping to see. Also, with great respect, lads, it's Andorra. They should be going out and not having a narrow win, but actually going and playing well, putting a smile back on the England fans' faces, because they haven't really under Tuchel. They've won, but they've not really impressed. And obviously, they lost to Senegal in the last game, which was a friendly at the City Ground. So let's allow these good players of whatever age to go out and express themselves.
Henry, I know that you. I've read and watched your interview with Marcus Rashford. I thought it was excellent. I know that you obviously therefore have at least a superficial relationship with him. He's back in the squad. Do you feel like he can contribute to England not only in this moment but ahead of a World Cup? He's had a massive move to Barcelona. This time next year, England will potentially have finished the Thomas Tuchel project. Do you feel like Marcus Rashford would have contributed to that story throughout his entire time?
I'm an admirer of his as a player and a person. Obviously his career was drifting at Manchester United, and he needed to get out of there, probably for the club's benefit as well as his own. Obviously he's only out on loan at the moment. I have to say, when I was still doing my preview to the England squad, I didn't actually really have Rashford in the reckoning. Obviously he was injured for the 2 games in the summer, which was unfortunate timing. But Tuchel likes him. And, managers talk about picking on form. We can't really say that he's picking Rashford on form at the moment. I mean, Rashford, you really want to see him, do well. And we should take pride in English players going abroad, whether it's Trent Alexander-Arnold at Real Madrid, Jude Bellingham, obviously via Germany at Real Madrid, and Marcus Rashford getting in probably one of the top 3 teams in the world, probably the most entertaining team in the world in Barcelona. But he's got Rafinha ahead of him. He's got other players. But, if Rashford can make it click and impose himself and get in that starting 11 on a regular basis at Barcelona, that's fantastic for England. And look, he offers, you've seen enough of his career. You know how well he can play on the left. But England have Anthony Gordon, who's good there, who's obviously in this squad despite his domestic suspension, and others who can play there as well. He can also play through the middle as a centre forward. So yeah, I have to say I'm still surprised he's in the squad. But look, it's great for him. And you always look for a connection between managers, England managers and players. And obviously, Marcus Rashford had 2 exceptional games for Manchester United against PSG. And maybe Tuchel's still thinking about that.
Henry, up next, we're going to discuss how Tuchel turns England into World Cup winners in the next 10 or so months. It's not something that we as English football fans are overly familiar with, but in your opinion, how should he approach it? Yes, it's Andorra, not just this game, but the games we've got coming up. Do you want to see, consistency in terms of team selection, more experimenting, different formations? How do you think he does it? You're listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. It's 18 plus, gambleaware.org. I'm Hugh Woozencroft alongside Rory Jennings. And a few moments ago, we were talking to Henry Winter about England, who have a couple of games coming up. Andorra at Villa Park in a World Cup qualifier. It's on Saturday. It's a 5 o'clock kickoff here on talkSPORT. We'll have their game away at Serbia on Tuesday evening as well. Let's go back to Henry Winter. Apologies, technical issue just before the break. We were rudely cut off, but Henry is still with us. Good evening, Henry, once again. And I asked you before the break, and now you've had time to think about it, how you would like to see Tuchel do this thing that we've all been dreaming of and turn England into World Cup winners in 10 months. What do you think?
I would like to see Elliot Anderson partner Morgan Gibbs-White in one of these games, building on their Forest connection. I'd like to see Madueke play, whether on the right or the left, and just to go and take on your fullback. You know, whether it's on the left or the right, just go outside him and get your cross in. I mean, we've seen him play on the left, we've seen him play on the right, and I just think, I just love width. And I just think when you've got a player like Madueke, just try and do that. Even if he cuts the ball back or cuts onto a different foot, then fine. But just see them play with a bit of freedom. England are going to qualify for this tournament, so let's just see which players are just play free in the shirt, and that's partly a tactical thing. That's Tuchel. I mean, I'm still surprised that Jordan Henderson's in the squad, because even though he's been a magnificent servant for England, Tuchel keeps saying he's effectively in the squad because of his leadership and because he knows that if he looks over at St George's Park tomorrow afternoon, he will see Jordan Henderson making sure that one of the rondos is being run properly. Well, I mean, that's great, but all these players have got to the very top of their professions for their club, and many of them doing good things with England, because they can take responsibility to actually make sure rondo is done properly. So I think we have to believe in these players more, give them more responsibility, allow them to go out and play with freedom and just show what they can do, whether that's Gibbs-White, whether that's Elliot Anderson, players like that. Livramento. Let's have a look at Livramento, either on the left or the right. He has played at left back before for England, and he's probably one of the best left backs in the country of whatever nationality. So, and whether he's stepping into midfield, whether he's overlapping, he's good on the ball. He's got amazing energy. He's played up against big players, Mo Salah, Mbappe, I think, before. So, let's believe in these young players.
We shall see how they play against Andorra. It's going to be a difficult one for you to review. You'll be back on Sunday, will you, with Sunday edition?
Yeah, I hope on the back of a victory, because...
wow. If it's a defeat.
It won't be a defeat. Famous last words.
Henry Winter there, thank you very much. Of course, our very own Sunday edition host and one of the country's best football writers, no less, joining us this evening on talkSPORT. There's one thing that I dream of when it comes to England. Go on. And that is that we proudly get to the eve of a tournament knowing our best 11. Injury permitting, obviously.
Yeah, but even then, you still know, don't you? If somebody's injured, you still know.
We know the England best 11 like we know who should be in our fantasy team. Like if someone said, choose the best 11 in the Premier League, dream team. We know it from that perspective. Yeah. But on the pitch, functioning, great England team, where we go to a tournament and we go, this is our best team, and these are the subs that we need to use in particular circumstances, and we are well drilled. Yeah. We need to get to that point. Yeah. And if that means that, and maybe it's after Christmas probably that this happens, that there is some sort of consistency in team selection, it needs to happen. England haven't played well, in my opinion, for the last couple of years.
No, I can't really think. Some people would argue maybe the game in Dortmund against the Dutch. Maybe there were moments in the game against the Dutch where we played okay. But overall, the tournament in Germany last year, we absolutely stunk the gaff out. We were one of the worst teams. We were certainly one of the worst teams to watch.
We just lost to Senegal. That's why I find it weird that it's like, with respect to Senegal.
We beat Andorra away 1-0, which is about as close to being a defeat, a victory that you can possibly get.
For me, when you look at the performances that England have put in, I'm like, can we get some consistency to selection? Obviously, there are a few injuries to big-name players at the moment, so we can't do that. But you need to get as close to your strongest side, I think, at the moment as you can in every game.
I agree.
And you just build into the World Cup with, once our best players come back, we'll slot them in. But for now, this is our best 11. Yeah. This is our best 11. This is all this experimenting stuff. I'm like, it's too late.
It needs bravery from a manager. And I don't think that we're going to get it from Tuchel. And we certainly didn't get it from Gareth Southgate. Like, there was a few games last year where it was crying out for Anthony Gordon's width, We were so lopsided. We had Foden on one side who was constantly cutting in. We had a right-footed Kieran Trippier playing left-back who would constantly cut in. Foden cutting in, Trippier cutting in and playing backwards. You basically made the pitch as small as possible because you didn't play in the left-hand third of it because you were constantly cutting in. So we didn't play Gordon. We were too scared to play Gordon. The tournament before, it was crying out for Jack Grealish. Again, we were too scared. I just want some bravery. Like, if Anthony Gordon is the right man to play, then play him. If he's not, if Eberechi Eze is the right man to play, then play him. If you need to drop Phil Foden, then drop him. If you need to drop Jude Bellingham, then drop him. Dare I say it, and I certainly don't think it, but if somebody, for some reason, needed to drop Harry Kane, nobody should have a God-given right to play for England. Pick the best team and be brave, and don't pick on reputation. Pick on form.
I know what you're saying in terms of bravery. I get it. I think international football, as England showed, right, you don't have to play great to win games, but you have to keep clean sheets. You have to be a difficult team to beat. England conceded either 0 or 1, and that means they gave themselves a chance, right? If they could get on the score sheet to either win the game or take it to extra time. That's what they did. They battled their way through a tournament. None of us are going to care if England battle their way to a World Cup victory. We aren't, right?
My argument would be that you can't win. I know there are exceptions.
You can't win the World Cup.
You'll talk about Greece in 04 or whatever. But I believe that England's ugliness throughout last year's tournament was never going to result in victory. You know, limping past every round, limping through every round, relying on Jude Bellingham brilliance, bicycle kicks in Gelsenkirchen. You cannot rely on that. What you need to do, ultimately the best team won the tournament. Spain were the best team in the tournament. They won it. Limping along, finding a way. The best players pulling you out of jail.
Listen, we have to be realistic. And there are some issues that I have with England in that, firstly, the manager, we're going to get to this tournament, people are going to be saying, are you staying or are you going? We're just going to have conversation around Thomas Tuchel's future when we get to the World Cup. I think that has to be decided before we get to the tournament as well, whether he's staying or going. But also, I think we're not going to play football like Spain. Right, we know we're not going to play. It's taken them years. They've got consistency in selection. They've got consistency in terms of how these players have been playing in club football.
Why not? Can I just ask you a question? Going into that game,
it takes time.
But going into that game against the Spanish, everybody was saying this to me. They were going, "Well, we know Spain are going to have all the ball," and I'm looking at the England team, and you've got the best player in Spain. Jude Bellingham was playing for England. The best player in Germany, Harry Kane, was playing for England. The best player in England that year was Phil Foden, playing for England. And I was sort of pushing back a bit. I was like, why are we just conceding that Spain are so much better than us on the ball?
Because they are.
But why are they? Why should they be? The best players.
We weren't going to resolve that 24 hours before the game. We're not going to resolve it in 10 months. We're not going to play football
I don't accept,
at the level of Spain.
I don't accept
next summer.
They're better than us. Player for player, they're not better than us.
I know they're not. But in terms of the quality of the team,
which comes from the manager,
that they have built over the last few years, we can't replicate that in 10 months. We could at the next Euros if we get a manager that wants us to get the ball down and pass it. And we, like I say, we have a consistency in selection for a number of years. We build our confidence. England do not have confidence when they go to these tournaments. It's fake. It's false. We show up at tournaments like we believe we can win it. I can tell you now, our players think the rest of what all of the fans think, which is eventually we're going to come up against a team that's too good for us. We know we've got good players.
I think
the only way to beat them.
I think the players can. I think the reason that the players may have thought that last time was because we had a manager that was ultimately totally out of his depth. The players are winners.
But Guardiola's not in charge of England.
No, but we have winning footballers. Individually, these players, like Phil Foden won a treble. Phil Foden had retained a Premier League title 4 years in a row. Then he gets in an England shirt under Gareth Southgate, and he doesn't know what way's up. It was
two different things.
It's managerial incompetence, though. It isn't the players. The players are as good as anyone's, aren't they?
I honestly, I've said this before previously. You all know about the quality of coaches in international football. There's barely any in terms of we've probably got the second best coach in international football. Carlo Ancelotti's at Brazil. We've got Thomas Tuchel in charge, right?
Yeah.
If you use that metric, we should play amongst the best football that any international team plays, and we don't, and we won't. Because of the quality of player, because of the time that it takes to build a team like that, because of the philosophy. And a lot of England managers have taken over and said, let's make England what's great about English football. The Spanish coaches obviously are saying, what's great about Spanish football? And what can we do? They've done that since they won the World Cup and won back-to-back Euros. It's a team that wants to get the ball down and pass it. If you want to get into that squad, you've got to do that for your club. England aren't that. We can't pretend that we're going to do that. We are all the hallmarks of what makes great English football teams and what might make a great Premier League team, but we're not going to outpass Spain, and we know that. The question is, can we give them a platform to perform at a high level, which means they can beat Spain by doing what we do well? They do what they do well, but can what we do well, is that enough to beat Spain? And can we produce it when it matters? Those are the two questions, really.
And do you think Thomas Tuchel was capable of taking us into that realm?
He is, yeah. But we're not going to beat them by playing better football. We need to be hard to beat, and we need to understand that the quality that we've got in our squad is in the forward players. Allowing Cole Palmer to get on the half turn, allowing Harry Kane to get chances at goal.
This is my problem with your theory. And I concede that it's probably correct. But I think that Harry Kane is one of the most gifted footballers that I've ever seen. I think Cole Palmer is a 1970s throwback maverick footballer who can do anything on the ball.
Yeah.
We have these players. Spain don't, and yet we're going there better than us.
But a great possession side, and that's the difference, right? Keeping the ball is Rodri in the midfield and Fabian Ruiz in the centre and Zubimendi. Those are the players that actually they're what makes Spain tick.
Yeah,
and we're going to show up with probably Declan Rice alongside a Wharton or an Anderson or a Gibbs White, and then a number
or a Jordan Henderson if Thomas Tuchel has his way.
And on that note, and it probably will be Jordan Henderson, remember we've got England live for you on talkSPORT this Saturday. It is a 5 p.m. kickoff as they take on Andorra. Hopefully it's better than the performance we saw in that 1-0 victory last time out. Their game against Serbia is on Tuesday night live here on talkSPORT as well. Adrian Durham, Jim Proudfoot and Stuart Pearce, the former England captain, with you for all three. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for everyone that got in touch. Thank you, Rory. You're listening to Kickoff on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. It's 18+. Be gambleaware.org, and we will see you very shortly with the Sports Bar. Jamie O'Hara and Jason Cundy are up next. Give them a call, 03717 223344.